Alright, so we are live, everyone. We have, I think it's Mikal Amin. Is that how we say it? Perfect.
That's it.
Awesome. So we have Mikal with us, which is amazing. This dude's already interesting from the limited conversations I've had with him, so I'm freaking excited to get into this. Welcome to Bridge the Gap. My name is Holden Stephan Roy, and this is the show where we basically talk to interesting people such as yourself. We walk through your life a little bit, and we get to extract knowledge nuggets along the way that can, better enhance all of our collective existences. It's probably not like most interview shows you've done. Hopefully, that's what I'm going for at least. But with that, to start us off from a big old opening question, can you just let us know super briefly where you were born? Not so much where you're based, but like where the early parts of your life took place, and kind of a little bit about what you do.
For sure. So, thank you for having me, Holden. Yeah, Mikal Amin and Mikal Amin. I was born and raised in the East Coast state of New Jersey. My family is originally from Newark. I was born actually in Livingston. But then about around 2 years old, I moved to a part of the state. It's a little bit more rural, small town, a little bit up in the west, called a place called Hopatcong, more like a farming county in Jersey. It's interesting, man. A lot of people don't realize, it's called the Garden State. It's really a lot of like agricultural and like woods and forests. So people don't really think about that. When they think Jersey, they think Newark, they think Atlantic City, they think Camden, they think right next to New York City, they think city, urban. But a lot of actually me growing up was me and it's funny, we were talking about a little bit right before we got on live, but I come from this place that's very small. But I've always been a writer, and really developed a love for hip hop music.
We're gonna get through all of that with like the proper first opening question, but we had to set the scene because otherwise it's like you'll understand when I get to the question. But now we know we started. First of all, I had no idea that New Jersey was that. I mean, I know it's the Garden State, but I never think about New Jersey because I don't think a lot about American geography until I talk to people who happen to be from places.
Most people don't think about Jersey. Jersey's the afterthought.
It's not even like Jersey. People will be like Rochester, and I have to look at a map to see. I have to look at a map to see where the fuck New York City is half the time. I don't know where shit is in the States. It wasn't part of my educate. We got Canada stuff, so like it was just whatever. The States is just a lot of shit.
Right.
But the opening question for real is it's a bit of a story, and when it lands, I look forward to seeing where you take it. But it starts with my girlfriend, and she's washing the dishes, and she's got her phone, and she's playing this Black Eyed Peas song. I got a feeling. Ooh. And she's vibing to this song, and she's dancing around, she's doing her dishes, she's having a good time. And I start thinking about this moment, and I'm like, yo, it's kind of nifty to see how like this song has turned into in our lives chores music or exercise music or this stuff that you put on when you're doing boring crap and you want to have a good time in your mind. So why do we do that? Because 10 years ago this song was honestly the party anthem for when you were super drunk at 2 a.m. having a great time in the clubs. And so all of us had this song in this kind of context at one point, and then all of a sudden 10 years later this song has kind of evolved for a bunch of us into exercise music, chores music, and it's the same song, but over the course of the decade its place in our lives has changed completely into something new. And I just thought that was super interesting because it's like music evolves. It's not like the same song, but its purpose evolves, right? So then as I started asking this question, people kind of enhanced my understanding, and it's more like everyone who is in that chores phase takes any of the club music right now and basically uses it as chores music. And all them young people that are bopping out to them Cardi B's and whatnot in the clubs, they're going to be in the future 10 years down the line, they're going to be seeing the chores music. They're going to be bopping around doing the same thing. And I found out a bunch of moms is doing the dishes to Cardi B right now, and it's like, to me, it's just so nifty how music evolves over time like that. And that kind of tied into ourselves and our own journeys with this. And I started realizing, when you look into people, a lot of us don't realize how early the journey starts. They start talking about things around adolescence, like when we start to form our identities and attach ourselves to the different things that we remember from our high school years, etc. But really, music is, like you said, it starts early. It's one of those things that, honestly, from the day you're born, there's probably some level of a musical force that's around you. So like I can remember being like, super young, 4 years old, 5 years old, and like my dad has all these gray boxes, these like fucking amp and the radios and the tape decks all strewn together with the wires going around to all the speakers in the room, and he'd be busting these Led Zeppelin tapes, and we'd be playing these 90s techno music. And my mom, she had these musicals and she had her discos, and all these different sounds created the various ambiances to my life growing up. And it kind of really impacted me as time went on. So I was hoping like you could bring us back to being the youngest Mikal you can remember being, and walk us through a little bit what it sounded like to be you before you had any real influence in the music.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, the earliest me I can remember, I'd say probably was like 6 or 7. And, like I said, my father, he's a retired high school teacher. He grew up in Newark. That's where he's from. So I spent a lot of time over my grandparents' house. And my first cousin, who was the son of my father's the oldest of 3 brothers. So I spent a lot of time there because he was always there, because my uncle lived still at home. And, I grew up, kind of with that stereotype people have, like Motown and church music and barbecues and soul music. And my dad was into, there's this thing in American music, Black American music, called the Quiet Storm. And it really, think about like Anita Baker, Luther Vandross, music like that, sort of just like real like hardcore like R&B and soul from the 80s. And my dad was really into that. So like I just grew up in a house and grew up with a family that was just really just steeped in a lot of just sort of like classic black music. The irony though is I liked it. It was cool. But growing up where I grew up, so actually, like I said, I grew up in Hopatcong in Sussex County. There, the music was rock. So I actually grew up listening to a lot of like hair band stuff, like Megadeth and what's the band? Love in an Elevator. What? Forget the name of those guys. Yeah, Guns N' Roses. It's not Guns N' Roses. The Liv Tyler's dad, his band.
Aerosmith.
I'm for Aerosmith. Thank you.
That's
Aerosmith. Aerosmith. Bon Jovi. Like
okay.
that's
So you like basically have your parents with all that soul and R&B, etc., and then you go into the world of rural New Jersey, and that's what's popular at that time. And so you have these kind of two worlds that are coexisting at once.
Yeah, exactly. And now this is a few years before I even knew what hip hop music was. I didn't even know what it was at this point, because we're talking like early mid 80s.
This is amazing. This is exactly why we start here, because that's the context.
Yeah, so clearly hip-hop's going on. Hip-hop is on the radio, not to the degree that we know now. And it's funny, I'm an educator as well, so I talk to my students about that. And, I tell them all the time, like, when I was your age, and I want to be like the get off your lawn, and I walk, 1,000 miles in the snow with my bare feet type of person and shit. But I would tell them, like, rap music was not like the music of the world when I was your age. Like, we sell rap, we use rap to sell everything. Sells your cell phone, sells your food. Everybody knows rap music. Doesn't matter what part of the globe you're in. That is literally the very definition now of what, like, not even just music, but American culture, right?
No,
like, the first thing you think
beyond
of.
That, I swear my Ukrainian colleague was complaining to me about how all the kids are listening to Russian trap out and about in public. And I'm like, man, it's everywhere. Like, everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, you can take what rock and jazz did and multiply it by like 10,000. like in terms of just the influence and how it's just kind of like taken over and sort of defined what we as Americans are, right? So this is in the very early stages of it, and I'm young, you know, I'm barely in second grade, so I'm just listening to whatever my friends are listening to, and whatever my parents and like my elders have around me. So I was a skateboarder, so I was like riding my skateboard, listening to like rock stuff, but then like I also liked like Huey Lewis and the News, and like these were bands that like I like had the tapes. Paul Simon, Graceland was like an early, like this is because that's what I'm getting from, like I said, like just being in my neighborhood and listening to MTV. So rap hasn't even entered my.
So you're part of like that like early MTV generation of people.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And again, like this is before like I actually really kind of had my own, I'd say, musical taste. But these things were things that I was listening to and I liked. So you know, my grandma had like the old school classic. Like I was talking to a friend of mine this weekend about it. Like, you know, back in the day, you know, old folk used to have like the record player, you know, slash tape deck slash radio that was like a piece of fucking furniture. Like the shit was as big as a couch. And like, you know, you could put your records in it. It was huge. So my grandma had that, and you know, that's what she'd be listening to all day long. She'd put on her Motown records and be playing that. So when I'd be hanging out and doing stuff with my cousin and playing basketball, or like in the house doing whatever, watching TV in the other room, she's playing all that. So I'm hearing all of that. In fact, I inherited like a whole bunch of her 45s when I went to college because she had stopped listening to records. Wow, so like when I went off this. Yeah, when I went off to college, she gave me like this huge stack of like old 45s, like this classic, like this ton. That's all. It was all Motown, nothing else, just all Motown records. All maybe some Mercury, I think, was in there, but yeah, like that's kind of what sort of like was like the early kind of like DNA of what I listened to musically, and then like around like 10 or 11.
Before we move on from that. Was there other stuff happening? Because this is more about you as the complete human. Like, were you an athletics one? Were you into the drawings? Did you have other stuff happening in your world?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, like I was saying, I was really into skateboarding when I was a kid. You know, I wasn't any good at it. I wasn't dope or anything like that. But like, I was definitely a skater and was doing that. I was into sports. But it's weird, man. Like, I'm a definitely like I love soccer. You know, I'm cool with basketball and shit like that, but I never considered myself a jock. Like, to me, jock was sort of like a mentality, and I'm a stereotype a little bit, but like growing up, jock was like the person that just wasn't really into anything other than themselves and being like cool for playing a sport. Like, they didn't really have like a rounded. So I was a very like shy kind of nerdy kid. I read a lot. I was in the books, but yeah, for sure, I was writing. I was even trying to do like even probably like closer to like 9 or 10. I was trying to write poems.
That is incredible.
Yeah, and it's just because my, you know, like I said, my pops was a teacher. My mother, God rest her soul, she was she worked in corrections, but she was really intelligent. She had her master's degree in criminal law. So they both really encouraged my sister and I to do a lot of reading. Like I said, I'm gonna take you back, man. We used to have in our house Encyclopedia Britannica. Now this is making me sound old as fuck, but you know, before Wikipedia and the internet and shit, we used to have like this like 28 volume encyclopedia set where the entire world was cataloged in these books. So if you wanted to read about giraffes or like geothermal energy or Ginsburg, you had to go into the Encyclopedia Britannica and look it up like a dictionary. So like I was really encouraged at a young age to sort of like explore and ask questions and look things up and research. So that led me to writing, and that led me to really being interested in like, I was always into biographies. I don't know why. I love to read about the lives of people and what they went through. So history was really big. So I was very nerdy, but I also was like I was active. I was active at the same time, and like I said, these are all stereotypes, honestly, because like there's clearly brilliant athletes and people that are definitely super conscious and
Well, I
aware
would
when
argue
they're
there's
great
a huge
athletes.
difference. I would say I've only ever heard the term jock used in one context, and honestly, my biggest frame of reference is the Revenge of the Nerd movie and my dad. So it's really
That's
not.
the '80s. That's it. That's
So,
like
but I would.
'80s Jersey.
Uh,
That's what it was.
at like a linguistic level, though, I would argue an athlete's a lot broader than just including a jock is like a subtype of athlete to me, where you can.
Oh yeah, for sure, exactly. No, agreed.
And then,
But I'm taking you into the mindset of like where I was
okay,
at that
yo, but
at
that's
that
super
age.
nifty. That even that's the thing, because like I only see it from like that perspective. Like I'm only born in '87, right? So like
Right.
that's some shit I watched with my parents when they were feeling nostalgic.
Word.
So I saw a lot
So
of that '80s stuff, but it's crazy. So like, you really like the world was broken down like that in a sense, where you almost had to pick your labels.
oh yeah, it was super box compartmentalized growing up in like the '80s, for sure.
But it's not just like
You
the
know,
'80s. It's you're one of the first people I've talked to, honestly, that's rural '80s, but like not far from me, which is so
mm,
different than say like urban, because like the urban experiences tend to be more cosmopolitan and have a slightly different like tone to the labels thing. Where usually the artist in an urban area will have they've been exposed to 1,000 things, but then you have like your world where it's completely like how far were you from like all the stores and the cities and shit? It was inconvenient to go do regular shit that I would have just taken for granted growing up in Montreal.
oh, I mean, it was probably about an hour away.
Oh my word, I've never had that in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically you have
Um.
that world going on. You're into writing. You've got the music, or you've got the writing. You've kind of got a passion for history going on. You've got access to all of this music, and you're being encouraged to like discover the world. Um, yeah, the golden hour is making you glow. That's amazing. So yeah, I guess the next thing is to kind of segue a little bit with the story. So when does it start to like evolve when you get your own real preferences for music and you start to kind of take it from it's around you to you start to form it more around your identity?
For sure. So yeah, like I said, like around probably like 10 or 11. Like I mentioned earlier, I used to hang out with my family a lot, and my first cousin, who really was like my brother. He was really like my older brother, and he actually introduced me to rap music. So like, there used to be a radio show called WBLS 107.5 and 98.7 Kiss FM with Red Alert. And this is like mid late 80s, like 87, 88. And they used to have these shows late night. The only time you could hear rap on the radio was between 10 and like 3 in the morning, Fridays and Saturday nights. It's the only time. Wasn't on the radio any other time. MTV wasn't really playing rap videos, like Video Music Box in our area, in the tri-state area. Shout out to Uncle Ralph, VJ Ralph McDaniels. He used to have a video show that played rap videos. My cousin was into it, and that was the thing. Whatever my cousin kind of was into, he introduced me to, and I kind of got into it. So like, he played one night, we were listening to the radio, he turns it on, and all of a sudden, there's this song by a group called Stop the Violence Movement, started by KRS-One,
Mm.
and the song Self Destruction came on, and it blew me away because I'd never heard anything that fucking hard and that fucking raw. But also, I'm used to people singing, screaming, whatever. I'd never heard these cats. It sounded like they were spitting poems, but they were spitting it like rhythmically, and it was like over this like these hard ass drums, and everyone sounded different. And there was like 6 or 7 different MCs on that record. So I'm bugging out. Like it starts out with KRS-One, and then I think it went into I think it goes to MC Light, Kumo D's on that record. Stetsasonics, like all of these like legendary artists that I didn't know. I didn't know any of these people when I heard the record, but they just sounded iconic. They just sounded like, who are you? What are you talking about? And it was just ill how they were just kind of like putting words together, and I was hooked. I heard Self Destruction, and all of a sudden, it was like I couldn't get enough. Whatever little, allowance money I could get. Anytime my cousin, my first rap show, I was 12 years old, and we went to see Twin Hype, MC Light, and the Biz at a high school football field that was down the street from my grandma's. And in the summertime, I used to live there. It was basically like summer camp. My grandma would look after us for like a few weeks at a time. And we went to a rap. I was like 13 or 14 by myself, me and my cousin. Dude actually pulled out a shotgun in the crowd at the end of it. And we all had to like fucking like jet. But like I was just fiending for rap music at that point. Once around, so like around junior high, is when I just started to just as much rap as I could get. Every time I would go to the store just looking for tapes, I started recording the radio shows every Friday and Saturday. I used to have like the double deck like boombox, like it looks like basically like this.
Stop! Nobody's pulled down a boombox. That's a
Oh, yeah.
first.
Oh yeah, but the one I had when I was a kid was doper than this one even. Well, not as dope, but this one is actually doper because you can actually record tape to MP3. But that's another podcast. But that's the shout outs to my wife. That was a birthday gift for my wife.
Yeah, that's hype as fuck.
But I had like the old school big blaster 2 tape deck. You can dub one side and play the other. I was recording hours of radio shows of hip hop and just listening to it over and over and over again. Every time I get a tape, I get Big Daddy. Big Daddy Kane was a huge early influence on me, and like Kid and Play, and I would just sit there in my room for hours and just play these records over and over again. Memorize. I had so many rap records memorized, dude. I had like 30 rap records, just like not songs, like albums. Like I could fucking do the entire album, just like verbatim. Because I just listened over and over and over again. It was crazy.
Yeah, I respect that. That's that shit that when you're a teenager you do, and then you grew up and you wish you could replicate, and it's way harder.
Yeah. Well, now all of my own fucking songs are in my head, so I barely can remember any other songs of my own. But yeah, that's when I really started to develop my own taste. And the funny thing is I didn't really stop listening to rock music. It just became more sophisticated what I was looking for. And I was looking for things that kind of had the same sort of like raw just feel. Because once I got older, I realized like a lot of the hairband stuff was kind of cheesy. It was just wild cheesy. You know, and you're a little kid, so you're just like, okay. Now I'm like, this is kind of cheesy. So I started to get into more stuff, and then some of my friends who were like really like heads of rock started putting me on this stuff like Sepultura and Tool.
Okay.
Metallica, stuff like that. So
you're getting into early hip hop and early Tool at the same time.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's funny. I know you got a journey we're going on, but to fast forward, like when I started like really studying the culture of hip hop and the history of it, I realized like how many overlays between like the punk movement in the 80s and hip hop had, and like so much of the ethos was very similar. Clearly they came from different places, they had different influences, they definitely had different origins, but the same sort of like DIY, I don't follow the rules, I don't give a fuck, I'm gonna make what the fuck I'm gonna make, which made sense when I realized like how many of those cats in the downtown scene in New York were just vibing with each other and like digging each other's stuff. So like I started to kind of pick up other somebody's in my house, other musicians and other artists that were in that, regardless of the genre. So I started getting people like Rage Against the Machine, stuff like that. Because I was looking for that. I was looking for that just like no nonsense, I don't give a fuck, just raw like sound. And I was trying to sort of like find how I could do that, because that was the thing. Like I'm super conscious, right? Like I'm aware that I'm some little kid from Jersey. I'm from basically a middle class home. Both my parents college educated. They got like civil servant jobs. My cousin's from the hood. My cousin's like straight out of Newark, had a crew, all of that stuff. Like my uncle's into that. But that's not like my reality. And when I'm listening to these records, I'm seeing that reality on record, but I have like my own living reference because here's my cousin doing that shit and around that shit and showing me that stuff. So I'm like, I'm not that. So how do I rep? So for a long time, even though I love the music, I was really apprehensive about doing it because, again, going back to stereotypes a little bit, rap to me was like, okay, it's street. That's it. That's the only thing. And if you're not a hustler, if you're not a player, if you're not like just like a tough guy, like you have to be talking about those things. And I didn't understand that until I started to listen to native tongues. And even though there was like Kid and Play, in the 80s, Kid and Play was a little corny too. Kid and Play was kind of considered sort of like a little kitschy. Like cats like, they cool and all. It's funny how a lot of things have changed. Like they're clearly dope. I love them still. But it's funny how things like change over time. But
big facts.
Yeah.
Just ask anybody my age about the Backstreet Boys and watch how they flip scripts.
There you go. But basically, yeah, like I really started to realize that like all you had to do to really be involved in hip hop and rap specifically was you just had to be real about who you were, and you had to be nice. Like you had to have skills. You had to know how to have that gift of gab, understand how to connect with people, how to get people hyped. But you didn't have to put on a front like, well, I'm the toughest guy in the room. You just had to know you just had to have game. You had to know how to use the language and have some rhythm and be interesting and tell a story. And if you could do that, and that's what De La Soul showed me, that's what Tribe showed me. It's like, oh, okay, yeah.
I was going to ask about De La Soul because if I recall correctly, they were one of the first like early, we're just middle class dudes rappers.
Yeah, on the low, they didn't make it. They made it pretty clear. Like, yeah, we're from Long Island, and we're not we're not from that. But at the same time, they also made it feel like in De La Soul is Dead. Like there's a couple of joints and skits where they make it clear, like, but don't play us, we'll fuck you up though. Like, which is the thing, right? Because that's the one thing I learned growing up too. Like, I wasn't a punk. I wasn't a tough guy, but I wasn't gonna just let you just like walk all over me. And I learned that from my cousin. So like when we'd hang out, cats hear how I talk or they saw what I was wearing and like, oh, we can get this dude. And I had to kind of show them like, nah, bro. Like I'm not from here, but I didn't just show up yesterday. Like don't fuck with me. And you get that respect. And those are the types of things I learned where it's like, okay, yeah, I don't have to be Cool G Rap or Freddy the Fox and bow up. I don't have to like look like I'm like on the block. I just have to really know who the fuck I am and make sure people understand like I'm not to be played with, and I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. The biggest key though was you just had to be nice. You had to have that gift of gab. You had to know how to get in front of people and make them laugh or make like, oh, did you just hear what he said? Like all of that. And like playing there's this game called The Dozens, and my cousin showed me that, and just like honestly him
Yo, can you break down The Dozens? I know what it is, but just it'd be better if you break
it down. For sure. I mean, basically The Dozens is I'm taking some old school lingo now. It's basically like hiking. Like I'm gonna say some shit to kind of like clown on you, to make fun of you. I might be like, yo, bro, like, why you got like a pink hat on, man? You look like a fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow dude. Like, why you over here looking like Bill and Ted and shit in the damn video? Like, this is wild. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not ZZ Top, bro. What's going on with the beard, dude? Like, and you would just, and it would be all friendly, right? You just go back and forth, like, oh, well, you Samuel L. Jackson looking motherfucker. Look at you, your beard's half on, look like a fucking lawn that didn't get watered and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you would just, and the whole point was just like to get who's gonna get the best joke off, right? And it's changed a little bit over time, but it used to be, and this is kind of where freestyling sort of for me also kind of came into fore, because it was sort of like the whole point, or battling I should say, the whole point was I gotta talk about what's in front of me. It's not about me knowing your history or having some inside shit on you or like making up something. I gotta look at you right in front of me and basically break you down. And whoever does that the best basically wins. and that shit could go on forever. Like if you like, and my cousin was great. I wasn't honestly, I wasn't that great at it when I was a kid, but like I got better with time because you had to. Because cats, you could get hiked on for hours. Like you might not get a word in for 2 hours. Cats, if they're really making jokes on you really bad, like it's bad. And most of the time when you're hanging out, it's a mixed crowd. It's not just you and your boy. It's a girl you like. It's a dude you rivals with. So like you don't want to come off like whatever. So you got to figure out quick how to like get people off you. You know what I'm saying? And show that like you can stick up for yourself. It wasn't always about like, okay, I gotta fight you and fuck you up. Sometimes it's just like I gotta show that you're not a clown, that like you can't get picked with, and that you had the wit to come back at somebody and get them off you. Because that was the best thing in the world when someone, they say something about your shirt, like, yo, man, you got this Pong shirt on in the fucking video, man. What the fuck, you from 1972, bro? And if I can flip that on you and get you off me, oh, you talking about my dirty ass shirt, bro, but look at you don't even fucking have a shirt on. Oh, you know what I mean? It's like, now we're not talking about my shirt, we're talking about the fact that you don't got one on. You know what I'm saying? So it's and that type of sort of like mentality is something I had to like grow, because that wasn't the environment that I was in and what I was from.
That's a big time knowledge nugget still. Sometimes it takes talking to the educator types to get that completely left field explanation that breaks the same shit down that the next 20 people can break down, but just a bit differently. But like sometimes you listen to like if you ever go through the albums in the mid 90s, like not the huge ones but most of the other ones, so like there's like 12 songs. 3 of them will be about shit and like 9 of them are talking shit. But then if you think about it from the perspective of where it all comes from and how people develop their skills, and if y'all spending hours upon end talking shit in the room, it just makes sense that everybody's gonna be excellent shit talkers on wax. But like that's like to me such a cool epiphany.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. So you're basically doing that throughout high school, or?
Yeah, that's basically junior high through high school. That's because it's funny. So my cousin, actually, unfortunately for him, his father passed when we were both. Well, he was 12 and I was 11, and my father, him being his uncle and it was his brother, he moved with us. So my cousin lived with me during high school where we grew up, where I grew up. And obviously, my the family on my father's side was relatively close, so we were always still going back to Newark, and I had a car, so we're going and doing whatever. So he never lost his connection to Newark, and through him, I never really. It was interesting, man. Like I think this is one of the reasons why I was so quick to move and really had a strong. So like a lot of people where I grew up, it was kind of what we were talking about before we got on. Like you're saying, like some places sort of have sort of like a low self-esteem because they just kind of stay in one place. That's the town I grew up in. In my town, you were doing it if you like graduated high school, maybe went to the 2-year college, came back, bought a house in the same town you grew up in and just got like a local job. Like that was making it big. Or if you like started a business, but that was it. The idea of you like, oh, I'm gonna go live in Seattle, and I don't know, be a park ranger, or I'm gonna go and become an actress and live in Austin, Texas, and do like dinner theater and try to become like a TV star and go to LA. Like people in my town, a lot of them didn't really, their imagination didn't go that big. It was sort of like, I'm just trying to graduate high school and like maybe take over like the family business, or like I'll go get like a good job so then I can go to like the local bar and I can just sort of be like the dude. And I was never in that. I was like, this shit is small as fuck.
Eh? Like that's a whole world. Like I know it exists. Like my best friend comes from that. So like small town Quebec like that. So he was describing it really similarly like that. But like that must be, how do you break out of that then? How do you get the kind of ambition to be like, that's not me?
You know what, man? I'll be honest with you. I wish I absolutely knew. For me, so here's the big thing, right? It's clear. I'm a black man. I grew up in a very racist. I grew up in a very racist white town.
Okay.
In the 80s and the 90s. So a big part of it was me trying to just get the fuck away from just sort of the small-mindedness of that, the ignorance of that. I have so many instances of being jumped because I was black, being told like I couldn't date your daughter because I was black. So like, for me, a lot of it was just associated. I'm like, this small ass town is so fucking ignorant. I want to go and find places. Everybody can't be this fucking ignorant. I gotta go somewhere else. I can't stay here. I don't know where, but also, like I said, I read a lot, listening to music, so I just wanted to go where that was. So like I said, I wrote, I was into poetry, so I fell in love with like the beats when I was in high school, so I completely romanticized like the Lower East Side in New York. And I was fortunate because I'm in Jersey, so it's literally, an hour by car, or once you have a car, trying to get to the city doesn't seem so far away. When you're in high school and you can't drive yourself, or you're a little ass kid and like there's no public transportation, New York feels like it's halfway across the country. When you're 18 years old and you got a car and time, an hour drive, that ain't shit. I used to do that, dude. I also got into electronic music. I was into house music because of the radio. When I went to college, I started to go to the Limelight in New York, the Tunnel, Twilight. I used to go to clubs, and I got into raves and outlaws. So at that point, once I was in college, man, I was driving all up and down the eastern seaboard. I was going to Massachusetts for raves. I was going to DC for. I was driving 3-4 hours one way to get to a rave at like 11 o'clock midnight. Party all night till like 6 in the morning, then get in the car and drive right back to wherever I was. Like at the time, I guess my first party rave was like when I was a summer right before I went to college. So I was still at home. So I was driving back to Jersey. When I went to college in upstate New York. Then I was going from upstate New York. I used to get like parties on party buses and go to like 3-day festivals in Ohio, Canada. Like I would go all over the place because I was looking for people. I was looking for experiences. There was something about reading these poets and listening to this music and how limiting my space was. Something inside of me was like, I need to find better people. I need to find cooler shit. And I just wanted to do more. I just wanted to do more. And there was a couple of people in my town like that, but I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know, because one of my closest friends, to this day, we've been friends for 30 years, and he definitely doesn't have like a small town mentality, but he never moved. Yeah, so and he's a college professor now, and he never moved. He was very content being like, he didn't have that impetus like I'm gonna go around the world and travel. He didn't really have that, but he's seen the world, he's done stuff, but like he never really had this desire to kind of like leave, where like I was chomping. I couldn't wait to go, and I didn't want to just like go and come back. I was like, I'm gonna go. Yeah,
I know what a party bus is because one time I tried to go clubbing on New Year's Eve and I failed hard, but I ended up standing in line all night with some people who were party busing.
Yeah.
So
Let me clarify that.
What's the party bus situation? Like, just like what? I mean, just the environment of what? Because it's the early '90s, right? Which is a lit time to be raving. What's it like?
So the party buses I'm on is a little bit different than what probably a lot of people. It wasn't a party bus where like a whole bunch of people were like drinking and stuff like that.
You would travel and then go to the festival.
Yeah, it was just a bus of ravers. It was just a bus of ravers that were all from one area. Like a good friend of mine, he would actually. There used to be these huge raves in DC that were legendary, and what he did was he chartered a bus, and a whole bunch of us that lived in the upstate New York area at the time, we all just like chipped in like $20-$25, like 60-70 of us, and just got in the bus to go together, because rave was a very community thing. Like you didn't go by yourself really. Like it was about being with that. Yeah, exactly. You know what it is. So like it was like you go with a crew. You go with as many people that you can get. You definitely at least go with like 3 or 4 people. That's just this how it is. You got to check for each other.
Unless you by yourself with a girl, and then that's a whole different vibe.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But even then, you got to be. And I'm raving mid-late 90s New York City outlaws. So shit was hectic. There was all types of like drug crews that was like stick up kids robbing people at raves. All types of shit you'd get in. So you had to kind of roll with people.
You're saying
and
y'all's
know people.
blitzed and it's scary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds harder than what I had to deal with.
Yeah. But you know, I'm again, all of this is hindsight. When I'm 19, this shit was just fun as hell. I wasn't even thinking about the danger. Dude, you know what? If
yeah, I
so imagine
noticed there was danger. Shit could have been going on in my face and I wouldn't have seen it.
I was, man, listen. So imagine this. Imagine like one black kid in the car. I'm driving. 3, 4 other like white kids, white girls, white guys. One of my closest friends, hardcore dealer, like sheets and sheets of LSD in the car, bags of e-pills. We're driving up and down the interstate like nothing. I'm like, I don't even think I'm fucking, basically I'm the drug runner.
Bro, I'm like you're spitting bars right now that I've heard in Griselda tracks.
But the funny thing about it is like but it's not, because like I'm such a fucking, like I wasn't thinking I'm moving weight. I'm like, we're going to the rave and my friend's gonna do what he does. I'm not thinking I'm getting money. I'm not like, yeah man, I'm just like, I'm the one with the car. And now this is gonna fuck your mind up. I at that time was essentially straight edge. To this day, I've never had an e-pill ever.
What?
Or LSD ever.
One time.
Not one time. Smoked weed, definitely into shrooms, but didn't do anything hardcore. At that point, I wasn't even drinking. So that was another thing too. Like everybody loved me because 1, I was sober at the end of the night, but 2, there was sort of like a spiritual thing that used to happen.
This explains how you could drive 4 hours after raving all night. This explains so much.
Yeah, as long as I had some coffee, because I definitely fell asleep at the wheel more than once. So fatigue will get you. But yes, I was sober. But the funny thing is like, you don't realize the inherent danger. All it would have taken was, we have actually gotten stopped before. I'd actually gotten stopped before. One time, my car broke down on the Garden State, so the state troopers had to come and like help us with the car. There was so many drugs in that car, like. And in my brain, I wasn't even sweating it, because this is the naivety of being 19, 20 years old. I'm like, well, I'm not breaking any laws. Like, they're just helping us because of the car. Like, there's no reason for... And mind you, black kid, like 1998, like just naive to like just this utter belief that like good existed and I wasn't doing anything bad, so then nothing bad would happen to me, or like total, and nothing did, thank God. Somebody was looking after me, someone was looking after me. But like, I think about all the shit now, like I'm in my 40s now, and I'm just like, yo, that shit was crazy. I used to break into places to fucking set up outlaws. There was one time we were in Philly, there was this old abandoned psychiatric ward, and it still had like rent-a-cops on it to protect it. We like hid out and broke into this like whole like campus and set up like an underground party, and we had already told people like the situation of like how to get to it, and like and had all these checkpoints and stuff. So we had runners that were like basically like some underground railroad shit, like leaving the inner sanctum of this campus, sneaking back out to the area where we told people to wait, and then like guiding them in and around the security. And we snuck like 80 people into this like campus and partied there. Full sound system, like full, like not a boombox, like a full ass like stack, turntables, the whole fucking shit. And we did that shit till like 7 a.m. And the hilarious thing is, we got busted at the end, but we got busted with everything outside. So like, someone called the cops. By the time the people showed up, they saw all the records, they saw like equipment, but we weren't on the property anymore. So they couldn't really do anything, but they knew something had happened. And we're like, I don't know what you guys, I don't know what you, we're doing something else. But again, like I'm sitting there like, well, we're not on your stuff, so you can't do anything. What are you gonna do? I have so many memories, shit like that. But it was just like
For the
wild.
record,
Yeah,
that was an incredible story. I don't know what other incredible stories you have like that, but that's the kind of incredible story a motherfucker needs to hear what the fucking underground movement looks like. Cause that's some yo. But something I saw happen, just like on the idea of raving. My brother got involved as a DJ in Montreal in like 2012, like
okay,
around that era. He did it for like 3 years. Now Montreal has a I don't know the current state of it, but it had a very solid underground rave scene, as in like abandoned buildings, fields, like they knew it. There was ninja code shits, all this other crap about like how to like go participate in this. I'm gonna be real, that shit was litty. Then it went corporate, like real like proper venues. Not the same. It is not the vibe. Like, 'cause you can't smoke inside. That's a huge thing. You can't smoke inside. It's just not the same party.
that's weird.
It's because like they passed the no smoking laws in like 05.
No, I
right?
know, no, I know. I mean,
So
I'm
now
happy
it's
for
like-
it now, but like that's weird for a party. Like, there's just no way you could have a party
So,
back
like-
then if you couldn't smoke inside.
Well, I mean, like that's it. Like you're like, yo, I can't. I mean, we're talking about like let's just say you might want cigarettes more than other moments in your life, kind of thing. It's just not a good. It's not a good look for like the whole vibe. Versus the outside shit's lit though. Outside raves are fucking incredible. Like a nighttime bonfire type situation. That shit's fucking amazing. But then everyone's so like clubs and bars, and I'm like, this is not the same. So like to hear about this underground experiences to me is just so cool. Like, how do you replicate that now? Not to encourage people to break the law. Definitely not. But how do you replicate that kind of shit? You know?
Can I be honest with you? I don't know if you can full scale because one, the mentality's different. Like the whole idea about the whole point in the 90s of doing things was, to your point, anti-corporate. It was counterculture. You weren't trying to have everyone be about it. It was really for the people that were like into it. And if you were into it, then you understood the rules, you understood the code. There was a whole like philosophy behind it, and you were a particular type of person. But with all of that said, and this is with everything, any musical or cultural movement, it's fun. It's fun to dance. The music it's infectious. So you see people having a good time. So you naturally want to do that too. You can enter into it and not really have to kind of like really understand why this core group of people were here or started it, and then over time that changes. So I think now the whole point of us throwing outlaws and to be 100% real about it, the time that I was going, I was doing both. Like I said, like I was going to Limelight, Twilight, Tunnel, but even clubs were different back then because there were nights where it was just like it was about sort of more of that hardcore sound or hardcore style, but the real shit was really happening in like warehouses, under bridges, in the middle of the woods, breaking into spots. But like now it's become more mainstream. Now it's like acceptable. Part of the reason why we had to do that is because if you were a raver, that was like a bad thing. Like you were like, it was like a punk. It was like a punk in the 80s. You didn't walk around with a badge that you were a punker because like people would think you were a fucking vagrant, or they think you're a criminal, or they think you're like, oh, you don't do shit with your life. You just fucking sit around and do heroin and fucking smoke weed and shit, you fucking punk. Like you don't have a fucking job. Like it wasn't something that like if you weren't in that culture or one of those types of people, it was looked upon. So you're like, well, fuck you. I'm not here to be you, right? It was all counterculture. The minute things kind of get larger, it loses that. So then it's like, and there's pluses to that to a degree, depending on how you look at it, because, okay, well, now it's accessible. Now more people can hear it. You know, now instead of struggling, if you're an artist or someone that's making these things happen, you can make a living out of it. But the trade-off is that rawness, that edge, it's gone, and you can't really get it back. So I'll say all this to say that. I said all of that to say this. People are still throwing outlaws today. It still happens. It's just not the commonplace, and there's fewer people. But I will say that whether it's rave, techno, hip hop, rock music, whatever it is, there's always going to be sort of like a counter culture. There's always going to be a rebel to it that's looking to push it to the next thing. So once it's established, there's some kid, there's some group, there's some person out in the middle of nowhere fuck that's like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm about to make this shit raw again, and I'm gonna flip it. Or like, I'm gonna come up with something else, and then that becomes the thing. Everybody doesn't realize, if you're not really close to it, it's like, at one point, jazz was not the established, respected Americana thing. It was the hoodlum music. It was sex and drugs and violence. That's the roots of, obviously, you know, the black experience and the things that we go through as a people, but like the culture in and around it, it was for the counter.
A lot of weed and cocaine back in those 20s.
A lot of heroin, but again, it was because it was coming out of a struggle. And when people struggle and go through things, you have those types of things to feel alive, to survive, to get through your day, whatever it is. And the music and the culture, the bonding is part of that. So like, I'm simplifying it a little bit because we're like on a podcast and like the whole anthropology discussion.
Dude, everything about this is fire. You don't understand. This is the show. We get knowledge nuggets. Yo, honestly,
no doubt.
Like the whole world benefits from that kind of context. Like, just think about what you're saying. So if you want to create a cultural phenomenon, first of all, it has to be like counterculture. So it has to look at the mainstream and not be that. Second, it has to not be cool, because otherwise it'll never attract anyone. So you have to effectively be dorky in a sense. Not like dorky, like cool to people, but like dorky to society.
You have to be different. You have to be different.
And like literally like fucking just go out there and break. Yo, there's a lot that people can take from it. I have a theory where the future of music's a lot more underground cultural phenomenons, making a lot less money but sustainable money, and a lot less millionaires. So the people who can figure out how to crack this cultural phenomenon code of how to actually get a bunch of people into what the fuck you do are in for a much better time. So I'm so fascinated by that topic.
Yo, I'm gonna use a cliche analogy, man. You know the Matrix. This is the seventh anomaly that we've seen. Like, culture is always reinventing itself, and it is always evolving. And the moment, like you hit it when you said this earlier. You're like, don't be cool. The early, no, for real. But hear me out. Check peep game.
I love it.
But peep game. The early jazz heads, bluesmen, punkers, they weren't interested in being popular. They weren't interested in people following them. They were doing it out of a necessity, out of the need to feel alive, out of the need to be like, fuck you. That's not cool. But again, when you hear the sounds and the rhythms and people gravitate, even if they're not real, they gravitate to real shit. You know what I'm saying? You relate to real shit even if you're not real. And when I mean real, I mean honest, authentic, yourself, different. You're not like, dude, you're on your podcast right now, chilling, hardcore. You got a joint in your hand. You got a fucking, fucking tee on and a fucking pink kitty hat. You don't give a fuck because you know who the fuck you are. You know what you vibe with.
Montreal. We bring that everywhere.
You know what
I'm
saying? Right. You're not interested in like, well, what's the cool shit I should wear being like a fucking podcaster? Like maybe I need to give off like the fucking like mad broadcast. Like you're like, no man, I want to tell a fucking story. I want to hear dope stories and I want to share that with people and I want to fucking chill out and cool, right? So like that's different. In a
nutshell, my guy.
Right, that's different.
Very apt.
And people gravitate to that.
Yeah, it's
more
fucking,
so than they gravitate to other shit.
For me, it's baffling when people are telling me that now, because I had like go through corporate America, right? It's not the same as the academic world. I mean, maybe it is a bit, but like it's mad conformity talk, right? Like I've been told to cut my hair to the point where it's been made clear to me I'd probably make more money by cutting my hair, which is ironic to actually say in 2021, right? Like that's an ironic.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
That's what they all complained about. I digress. Right? It's those people. They're the ones that
yeah.
are in charge. Anyway, but like, yeah, I don't know. I had this vision of myself looking like this one day, and I was like, I'll fucks with how I look. I don't give a fuck
Right.
what other people think. I mean, I care a little bit because nobody likes the shit that's negative that comes with it, but like, it would be ideal if people were maybe sometimes less critical if they didn't know me. But at the same time, it's like superpowers. People just underestimate me like day in, day out. It's so fucking helpful.
And that's man, that is a great weapon to have. When
Yeah.
people underestimate, they take a look at you and they're like, you're not a threat. It's like, I'm the motherfucker that's about to take your whole shit. You won't even realize it.
Big facts.
Oh, we don't gotta worry about that show. Look at these fucking cornballs. I'm the motherfucker that's gonna get the ratings and the sponsors because my shit's official.
Bro, we got top 10 podcast Montreal, fucking according to fucking Call Montreal. It blew my fucking mind. For like 9 years, I wanted to be on that list for anything. I don't give a fuck. It could have been like best hot dog if I became a hot dog guy, because that shit matters to like regular people. And then I wasn't expecting it. I made one fucking Facebook post, dude, and it was to vote for the next man's. Because fuck, never say vote for me. Vote for the next man's and throw yourself in as a postscript. Yo, shout out Willie. I'm pretty sure it was Willie where I fucking linked up with you, so that's why I wanted to shout out Willie real quick. Who's
Oh, no doubt.
And yeah, then enough people vote. It could have been 9 people. I don't fucking know how easy it is to get spot 10 on this list, but the fact is it happened, and that was the most beautiful shit. So in a lot of ways, I empathize heavy with what you're saying. It's baffling to me though, because it's so contrarian to the advice of how to succeed. Like when I watch how to succeed videos, and then I apply it to my real life marketing experience, which I was gifted with via day job land. It's like, bro, everybody's giving the shittiest advice. Because if everybody listened to what everybody's saying, none of y'all gonna sell shit. And I watch the advice, and you see, like, anyway, it's like a huge topic.
A lot of this
like,
bullshit.
But it's also like the one thing they don't tell you is how Kendrick was a ghostwriter for 7 years.
I didn't even know that.
7 years. Ghostwriting. Did a lot of his shit. 7 years behind the scenes putting in work before anybody even let him do Section 80.
Didn't even know that.
A lot of that kind of parts of the stories get overlooked to me, and that's why I love doing this. Like in your case, check you out. You've already got this like knowledge shed of memorizing albums going on at like an early phase of life, dude. And you gotta, like, you might not register that as clocking your 10,000 plus hours, which is probably more like 30K if we're being real. Of like practice, and you're putting that in at that age. So when you come later on in life and certain things are more natural, nobody's saying when you were like 10 memorizing rap albums that was experience points towards the skill set of being an excellent MC and performer later on in life. And these are the kinds of connections I wish people would see. Life is like Skyrim. It really is. The skill tree in Skyrim is the most real life shit I ever saw in a video game that inspired me.
Oh shit. Well, you know what's funny, man? What you just said is exactly why I found myself also becoming an educator and really working with young people, mostly high school, college age, many of them who wanted to be artists. Because, yeah, when I was younger, it wasn't until I was probably like late 20s, early 30s that I realized, like, oh shit. Because check this out. I used to, and actually, hold on one second. I'm gonna turn this light on so I'm not like in the dark. Hold on.
Yeah, the golden hour has ended.
Should be a little bit better. When I first moved to New York in 2000, and I was doing it before, but when I moved to New York and I started going out, and I realized the level that I stepped into, which was way the fuck above my head. Shouts out to Ill Spoken and Freestyle Mondays, Mariella and the crew, Chris Kuzmi, all those guys. You know, like, I was writing a song or a verse at least a day, and not just like any random ass song or verse. I was like giving myself challenges. I'm like, okay, I gotta write 30 bars of this rhyme scheme. I gotta write a verse telling a story about this. I gotta do like a rap personifying this, and just writing them, saying them, because I knew every Monday it's for freestyle, but I needed to be like in a mode of thinking and being able to just like really get it in. And because I grew up like right outside of New York and being in Newark, like when I was a kid, when I was in high school, you know, I'm going to Newark at the time when like Redman's blowing up, when Queen Latifah's blowing up, and Newark is not a big city, so it's just like you feel that it's so the energy's so close, and you feel that, so like you're like, yo, I'm trying to do that. You know what I mean? It would be like if you grew up in Akron, Ohio, and you went to the same high school LeBron goes to, and you played ball. You're like, oh, that's what I gotta do to be on. So whether I reach LeBron or not, I might not grow to be 6'8" and 240 pounds ripped. I might stay 5'8" and a pudgy ass 170 pounds. But in my brain, I'm like, well, I gotta work out. So I'm in New York around all of these amazing, talented musicians and MCs, and I'm coming from a place where like, where I was from, I was like the best MC. Like it wasn't even close. But there wasn't that many MCs, and it's a small ass town. And then when I went to college, I met my crew. Shout out to ESP, and they're super dope. And we were probably the illest on our campus, but it was a campus in Poughkeepsie, New York, and New Paltz. Like, there's not really a lot going on there. So like, you get to a place like New York City, and you do one of two things. You see the level, and you go, you turn your ass right around. Yo, I've been in New York for 21 years, and I've seen so many people roll up like I'm the shit, and then step on that stage or step in that club and walk right the fuck out. They're like, yeah, bro, it's a different thing right now. Like, and if you're not ready to take your lumps and be like, you realize, you find out, like, I knew in the first 2 years, I was like, I'm not that dope. Right? I was like, I'm not that dope. And mind you, I'm winning contests in Poughkeepsie. I'm performing at bars in college with my crew. I come to New York, I'm like, I'm not that dope. I'm listening to cats that are here. I'm like, wow. I'm like,
abundantly clear to me that
yeah, it's like I'm in a different game.
If I come to New York, is that, and you best be ready for that. So to hear you describe it like that is truly wonderful to me.
Well, here's what's fucked up about a place like New York. You can say that about Chicago, the A, Austin, LA, any big city. It's in everything. You think you're a dope ass chef? Come to fucking New York. You ain't that dope. You fucking you tap? Come to New York. You ain't that dope. You design websites? Come to New York. Because the best of the best from everywhere else comes to cities like New York, comes to cities like DC, Atlanta, Los Angeles. So if you come through like, I'm the shit, I'm from Rochester, son, I run that shit, or like, I'm from Hopatcon, I run that shit, you're like, okay, well, guess what? Everybody here is A triple plus 2, and they've been here, or they're from here, and they're literally running and working. So I showed up like, oh, I gotta be writing every day. I gotta rap every fucking day. I actually, like, it became obsessive. And I never thought about it until I did my first, and I was recording and doing records, and I had my crew ESP, and then my next crew, Third Party, shouts out to Third Party, but I was always like, I can't chill. I gotta write. I gotta fucking record. I gotta rap. I gotta rap in front of everyone at any moment, because those first couple of years, I'm like, I can't hang. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to make myself into something, I'm not at the level. And I got that. So you do one of two things. You either do what I did, and you go, okay, got to go to the gym. Got to get on my stick. Got to take those lumps. Got to be at the bottom. Got to be last. Get the 10th, get the 8th, get the 3rd, get on top. Or you turn your ass around and you leave and you go back to wherever the fuck you can. And I knew a lot of people like that, man. They would show up, be here for a year, 2 years maybe, be out. Couldn't do it, because a lot of it, I mean, it's tough living in New York anyway, but a lot of it was sort of like they were used to being the top dog, and you come here and it's like, you can think you're going to be the top dog, but you're going to have to prove it. and there's always somebody coming in with that mentality. So like it's the gauntlet. It's the gauntlet.
So that's
You're
where it's
always
different.
being tested.
So it's the fact is it doesn't matter. Like you'll never get to chill, whereas in other places you might get to chill.
You can get to the top of the hill in a small town. You can get to the top of the hill even in a small city sometimes.
This is the right time to respond. So DJ Unpaid Bills is waiting for me to respond because he wants to get.
Oh shit! Unpaid. That's the crew.
No, the crew can't come on the call now, but the crew can have an interview in the future and say what he's got to say then.
Oh, but, yo, what up, Bill? So check it out. So me and Bill. So Bill is someone I've known for almost 30 years now. I met him in college. And he wasn't my first roommate, but he was my only roommate. And he was a DJ, or he is a DJ, excuse me. And check, so this is you'll love this story. So how we met was he was living in another dorm in the freshman side of campus, and I was in a completely separate dorm. We weren't a crew at this point. And he's hanging out outside, and I don't know what was going on, or somebody was playing something. But I roll up on my skateboard and I see these cats, and it's your freshman year, so you're kind of just sort of like going around campus, and you're young, you just jump into shit. And he was with his people. That's what he was playing something. He was playing something on a tape deck. He was playing something that he had. I don't remember if it was one of his beats or something he was gonna sample, but he played it, and I just started rapping. Like I just started fucking flowing. And he's like, "You rap?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Come with me." Go to his room, and he plays a bunch of shit that's ridiculous. But then he like pulls out this tape, and he's like, "Yo, check this shit out." And he plays this ill like Frank Zappa sample. He's like, "No one's heard this shit before." And we just we hit it off, man. We just kicked it for like, I think we saw the sun come up, and we just started playing records, and he's playing me shit, and he had his turntables, and we just bonded, and we became, for a really brief period, the 2-man team. That was our crew name. And like maybe like a month or two after that, we ended up meeting the rest of our crew.
So y'all for reals were like a real DJ rapper lineup, like.
Oh yeah. Bill is a ridiculous DJ and a dope producer.
Bro,
and
shut up, Bill.
Yeah, he's super dope. And you know, he was just in college like I was in college, and he'd come from a place called Somers, New York, another small town. And that was a lot of the bond too. Like both of us came from a lot of the same like background mentality. So even though he was like this tall, lanky, white Irish kid, and I'm like this short black kid, a lot of the things that we dealt with and grew up in were really similar. So we built not only just about music, we just built about everything. Like we just had the same energy and mentality about people and life. So it was just like really easy for us to bond. But like that first spark was he was playing some shit, and I was like, oh, I gotta spit to this. And he's like, oh, you rap? I'm like, yeah. And we just hit it off. And then like a couple months after that, we met this kid named Todd Deschamps, aka DJ Mayday, and his best friend, who he grew up with. They went to college together. This kid Ryan Chanelli, aka Luck D, and they were a crew called Tactics. They were like best friends from like growing up, from like the crib basically. And it was the same shit. Like there was a open mic talent show that the college was having. We were the only two rap groups, and we went on and they went on, and we were both like, hold up, wait, you're kind of dope. Oh, you're dope. So we started kicking it, and it was almost like the same exact thing. Like we went back to Todd's dorm with his boy, with Ryan, and we just started kicking it, and like instantaneously, like we were just all inseparable. Like from that point forward, we just ate all of our meals together. When we weren't in class, we were either in Todd's room or they were in our room, and we were just playing records, making records, and just having fun. Really, like there wasn't like okay, we're about to blow up. It was just like we all got each other, and we all really loved music, especially hip hop music, and we just vibed, and we were just on the same shit. And like I said, I'm still, mind you, I'm going to raves. I'm actually emceeing drum and bass.
Yo, that's hype.
Yeah, I'm doing all types of shit. they're not even into that. In fact, Todd and Bill like were huge reggae heads. Like if they weren't DJing parties with hip hop, they were like DJing reggae parties. They were like doing reggae. Like that's so we all had our own. We were all our own people. We were all very different, but we bonded and connected on some like really like family shit, political shit, growing up in the same way, and having the same or similar outlook on it. But we just to this day we have a chat. We'll just be texting back and forth, just like throwing each other like, yo, you hear this record? You hear this record? Like, yo, you got to listen to this thing. All types of shit. It's just the same type of like bond connection. But it's like we were saying earlier, man. Like Bill was just somebody that was just different. Like he thought different. Like he just did different.
Yeah, fuck
and it was.
You got mad at me for not answering fast enough. Different.
Yeah, he probably just don't. He's not usually on the internet like this. So like,
shout out DJ on Bay Pill one more time. That's fucking cool. You got a whole like.
Yeah, that's my man. 100 grand, man. That's my boy, man. I love him to death. He's my brother, man. So yeah, man. Like,
so it's crazy how like organic your shit is, right? You just like we're just in this era where as you're coming up, people aren't trying to be famous. People are just like mad excited.
I mean, some people are. Don't get me twisted. Yeah, some people are.
But not,
some
I
people
would say that the ratio of people getting involved in something like this within the back of their mind, a desire to pop off, has changed.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think, you know what I think it is, Holden? I think, and I don't want to over-romanticize it, and I'm only one person, but I'll say, to your point, I think the time that I came from, it was a lot harder to quote unquote blow up. There was a lot of things that needed to kind of fall into place for you to become big and famous. But the internet, social media, technology, like we had to spend thousands of dollars just to get a professional mix of a record.
But then there was a higher chance you were going to flip that shit for $10.
Yes and no, because there was still a lot of cats making music, and we didn't have, like I said, Bill's from Somers, New York. I'm from Hopatcong, New Jersey, and the ethos that we had was we're not gonna front like we're not from there. Like we're not gonna be like, okay, we're tough, or like we're badasses. Like we're gonna talk about the shit that we know and the shit we love. So by that point in the mid to late 90s, yeah, there's an underground movement and there's independent, there's like Raucous Records and Quantum and all this other shit. But rap now is being dominated by like top 40, Puff Daddy, Southern shit. So like in order to like get on and get a record played on the radio or like get a video made, you needed hundreds of thousands of dollars. You needed to be signed by a label. And you weren't really just like, now, I mean, I have, if I were to turn my computer around, my wife's a singer, a producer as well. We have a studio. We make our own albums. You know what I mean? Like, I shout out to my man Willie Green, Core Rhythm, dope MCs, dope musicians, but they're also engineers and they're homies. I can just go like, all right, cool. I don't have to go rent a studio. I just call one of them up and like, yo, you got time? Like, this is the timeline. Here's some shit. Let's set it up so you can kind of like mix this shit. You can have your own industry without having to like, basically go through a lot of middle people. So
which
it was sort of like
true.
Yeah,
there is the flip side to that. Just because there's that perception of it. My perception is the barrier entry so low that a 17-year-old on his phone is able to compete with me with my gear. And that puts an entirely different threshold where 100,000 views is meaningless in a world where 100,000 views once meant success. So the target of success has gotten so much higher in an inflationary way where it's effectively the same thing.
No, yeah, exactly, and that's that saturation you're talking about, right? And I almost feel like I want to ask you, like, how many people have a real, say, like, million subscribers? Like, how much of that is an actual, like, grind out, like, I did a whole bunch of episodes and I had strategy to like connect to this influencer that got me to these groups of people. And how much is that bought? And how much of that is just genuine? Like, I had a really dope concept or a really dope story and I knew how to flip it and I had the strategy to network.
I think it's always going to be the same thing where talent is a very much a small perception of it, but I think you can get out of paying for advertising per se, but there's always a cost, and you're going to pay with time/creativity, you're going to pay with money, but it's probably a hybrid of the two. But I don't believe there's such a thing as big time success without a lot of compromise and a lot of effort put into finding a place in the market. Like Drink Champs was like, yo, nobody gives flowers, let's give flowers. Boom, that's a whole niche. Joe Rogan was like, I'm gonna bring on controversial people and pretend I'm fucking equal and whatnot. Whatever, we see through him now. Joe Budden was like, I'm Joe Budden. And that was enough in his case. But that came with what? Love and hip hop, mixtapes, drama. But the answer to the question is, I think people follow interesting things. And to be interesting is fucking complicated in this world. And the scale up is going to require treating anything more like a business than like an art project, but you have to create art projects but then treat the rest of it. So if you want to be independent, at least you can go get signed if you don't want to run that shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's like the trade-off. So at that point, it's like you find a lot more of your choices are driven by should be driven by community. I think if everyone really wants to figure it out, it's how do you create it? Like, how did Hot Wings really create a fucking community around chicken wing fanatics? But they did. Fucking were the Hot Ones or whatever, the chicken wing show, interview show. Like,
yeah.
It's such a stupid gimmick, but it was so regular. Who the fuck doesn't like hot? In the back of your mind, you're like, I kind of want to go on that shit. So to me, the answer to your question is really find a way to make people want to be involved. Like, they want to feature on your music. So they feel excited at that idea. How do you make people feel excited to feature with you? How do you make people feel excited to be on your show? So I tried to create an experience that was almost therapeutic in the way that we go through your life, so that when you leave here, you're left with this feeling of, fuck that, I want to come back on that shit. That's all I care about on my show. And I feel like as long as I make sure my guest is cool with it, they enjoy the experience, then they're just going to tell people I'm dope, and that's all I really need, because their opinion's fucking dope. And so it's a lot of that. But this is like years of failure. I used to be like egocentric with it. It used to be about myself, and then I realized I went like 7 years, never even said Montreal, and I'm like, that's weird. This is a team sport shit, and I'm not even repping my own team. So I had to go through all these epiphanies to realize you have to tap into your local community and find a way to provide value. And all the famous people I've seen, all the brands that succeeded did this sort of things. But then if you take it back to what you did, none of those people were cool. Or none of those people. So it's like I try to combine these elements in my head to create a formula that I can teach people on how to fucking take their brands and actually run it. The thing is it's going to work because 95% of people are going to flat out fucking ignore me. So it's cool if I spit the game. Nobody's going to do it.
Right. Well, they're looking for the cheat code, right? They're looking for the quick. And you had the knowledge nugget just a minute ago, man, because it's like build community. And I feel like
ironically,
that
Karis One's The Gospel of Hip Hop is the book that
Amen.
Really showed me that shit.
You see, you talking my language, my man. So, and that's the thing, right? Like, it's fucked up, Holden, because what you said is literally the key, and it's become such a cliche because, to your point earlier as well, that shit doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It might take 15 years. So you really find out, are you really about what you say you're about? Are you really about these people? Do you really want to grow and connect? Relationships, real relationships, in my opinion, they don't happen over a period of 1 or 2 days or a few hours. It's about being consistent and coming back time and again, no matter the situation or the circumstance, right? And that way, that's that authenticity, right? And it's not about being cool, because cool can get seen through really quickly if that shit's not born of anything, right? And that's the thing. It's You blew my mind when you were like, I didn't know, and I should have known that Kendrick was a ghostwriter for 7 years. And I tell my
Let's just say
students,
like I'm 90% certain, just in case he wasn't. But I'm like,
oh no,
90% certain.
I believe it. No, I believe it because it makes sense because there's so many other stories that are similar about artists. Like, cats don't know that like Jay-Z started fucking his Big Daddy Kane's record crate holder. Like, for years, he would just basically come out on stage in between Big Daddy Kane sets to spit like a verse. And then he was doing that with Jaz-O. Now, when you say Jay-Z, he's synonymous with hip-hop. You know what I mean? Like, he's now considered widely by so many as like the godfather of the culture, right? But he didn't actually do anything for the first like 10 or 12 years of his career other than be a fucking record caddy, the side hype man, and then was in like a little ass group called the Jazz where he wasn't the lead MC. By the time you hear him in Reasonable Doubt, he'd been in the game basically as someone's helper and just building skills and building rep and showing that he could do it and all. But we only get the magical Jay-Z appears in Bed-Stuy and drops Reasonable Doubt and he's a legend and the rest is history.
He's like 27 when Reasonable Doubt comes out. Why is
talk about it?
Do you know how
talk about it?
Okay, like
talk about it.
I started rapping for real. I consider it my first show. Not necessarily my first upload. My first show is when I think it counted because I performed I was on the bill, my name and shit. That was June 5th, 2012 or some shit like that, right? So I'm 25 at that point, and motherfuckers be like 17 around me. And then you start seeing how DMX is like late 20s, and a lot of these dudes is like late 20s when album 1 drops. Obviously, they have a bunch of shit I've never heard of that came out on the streets, blah, 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 blah. But like, it's just the idea of his age being so late when Reasonable Doubt comes out, or when the first X album drops, or when so many of these guys are not Nas aged, that it's like, wow, you can really just be old as shit and still push this. Look at Griselda. They're in their 30s. They're in their 30s having their fucking run of the year. That's fucking blessed.
No, that's real. That is super real. I mean, and you know, again, it goes back to, do you love this shit? Yeah. Whatever it is you do. Like, you clearly love podcasting, networking, build a community, because only if you love this shit
it's
or whatever
like,
it is.
I love making music, and this stuff I'm learning to love on this quest to achieve my goals. There is no particular lane for people like me, in my opinion, because I go to the shows with other people, and I'm 100% sure 98% of that crowd don't fuck with me the way I wish they would. And that's okay. But that means I have to go figure out a whole way to attract motherfuckers to my shit, which doesn't exist. So how do you do that, right? Then I realized there's ways to like approach it different, blah 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 blah. So yeah, in a lot of ways it's like, this is not my first love, but I've learned to love the beauty of the process.
But that's the thing though, it's authentic. That love, however you got to it, is authentic, which means that people, maybe not everybody on the planet, but there are people that gravitate to it because that's what they want. It goes back to saying about, you know, the culture and things that are cool. On the surface, people don't admit it all the time or realize it because they don't really realize the secret is to not be Cardi B or be Kendrick. It's to have the mentality of like, I'm going to do me regardless of whatever you're doing. That's the message. It's not, okay, be like me, even though the way the industry sets it up, that's what they want you to do because they want you to buy their shit. The message is like, whoever you are, you need to be the illest version of that. You need, whatever it is, whatever you're into, you need to be the illest version of that and be consistent. And you'll be surprised. You'll find out there's a lot of other motherfuckers that might be on the same wave, on the same vibe. And then it grows. And then you have something. But like, that's work. And that's time. And like you said, there's a lot of failure in that. You're going to get laughed at a bunch. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be all types of setbacks. And most people, especially in my opinion now, They want that shit today because social media and the internet teaches us it's today.
It's not today.
It's not today. It might be 20 years from now.
It might not even. Hold on. It might not come. Yeah. I started hitting this point, and this is a little more dark. But I could just die, but I started a seed thing, and maybe my death would be enough to make somebody else be the one to make it happen. And that's like kind of enough for me now. Now I just have to live with the fact that it might take longer than my life.
Well, and here's the thing, man, and I can already tell. You know, along the way, you've probably had some crazy ass times. You've made some dope ass friends, and you've probably impacted people that you don't even realize you have. Like that's the thing that
last part is way truer than the first two parts. So much of my last 5 years of my life has been spent in a room in front of a computer talking to cameras and shit. So the actual human interaction where I see the other side of it is very recent. It's hugely overwhelming, and I'm only recently learning how to fully comprehend the impact of what it is to be in a position like this with like the humility of not being an arrogant asshole about it. That part's kind of hard because some days you wake up and you're just fucking feeling yourself like a motherfucker, which is fun, don't even get me wrong, but like
right.
But like then you gotta like think about it bigger, because you talk too much shit, you become Icarus, you fly too close to the sun, you fall down and you drown and die and shit. You don't want that either. Anyway, let's go back to your life, because that's fucking, as much as this is blessed, and I think there's been a lot of value in knowledge nuggets, because they throw in knowledge nuggets up, yo. They throw in the fucking knowledge nuggets up. But let's go back to you, like, post-college. So you basically grinded it out. Y'all made a bunch of music for the love of music. And then what happens what were you studying in college again? You may have said it, but I completely forgot.
No, I didn't. I ended up with a degree in English and a minor in political science. I went to college pre-law, and then after my freshman year, I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer. And I realized, like, my passion and what I loved was writing and music. And I started to gear myself towards that. So I have a degree in English and with a minor in poli-sci.
That's fresh as fuck, though. So then after college, is that when you go to New York? Or do you do other things?
Oh, wait, say that one part again?
After college, is that when you go to New York, or do you do other things?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So me and Bill and actually Mayday and Ryan go first, because they're a year ahead of us. So they end up going home back to Connecticut, where they're from, and then we graduate. Bill and I. Bill goes back to Somers, New York. I go back to Jersey for about 6 months, and then we all kind of get a spot together in Brooklyn, and that was March of 2000. And
serious. You're in Brooklyn, then.
Yeah, we're in Brooklyn in 2000, and with much of the idea at that point. By the time we had graduated college, like when I told you how we met in my freshman year, we weren't thinking about what we were thinking about by the time we were seniors. By the time we were seniors, it's like, okay, we need to move to New York, and we're gonna do this music. And it still wasn't like because we want to blow up and be famous. It was just like, well, what else the fuck would we do? Like, this is the shit we love to do, so we're gonna do that. And we're young, so fuck it, let's do that.
So you guys head down there, and then you find out you're not as dope as you thought you were. That you also had said.
Yeah, that's when I found it out, because I started hitting up open mics and going to different spots.
But to be
and
fair,
just like sampling.
There's a difference between what New York thinks is dope and what Montreal thinks is dope. So it might have just been that had you come to Montreal instead of New York and done the exact same thing, we would have said you were dope on just a completely different vibe. I just want to throw that out there in respect to, like, everybody. I mean, shout out the New York stamp of approval. I went on this open mic. New York didn't fuck with me, but Montreal fucked with it. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck New York. I'm going to take that Montreal love when it comes to my music. But New York likes it when I talk, so I'm okay with that. New Yorkers fuck with me as a podcaster. So, like, the fact that I can get, like, a New York stamp of approval on something is still blessed. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. No, but again, like, the mentality that we had was, well, we're just gonna, but we know what we do, so we're gonna do it. And for me as an MC, and so the whole crew is me. At the time, I wasn't Mikal Amin. Like this, that's my given. My real name is Mikal Amin. My full name is Mikal Amin Lee. Now I just go by Mikal Amin. But before that, when I came to New York, I was going by G Rock really early, and then I became the hired gun. And I got that name because, like I said, I was emceeing the drum and bass. I also was fronting a couple of like different like rock bands. I was throwing parties.
Hold on, you were fronting as in you were like rap singing? Do you sing too?
I wasn't rap singing. I was basically doing like my Zach De La Rocha shit. Like I was just like, people would be playing like hard rock or like, you ever hear of a label called Hospital Records?
No.
It's a British drum and bass label. Basically, there's a band on there that did live drum and bass. Like it was a drum and bass group that basically did drum and bass music, but it was all played. So it was like the drummer, the horns.
Oh, I fucks with that kind of shit. I know the general sense of what you're talking. I might know what you're talking about actually.
Yeah. So I used to front shit like that. I always and only rap. But I would rap to anything. So because of that, I kind of got this reputation of someone that's like, hey, if you need a job done on some like music shit or like performance shit, like this guy can do it. He can rap. He knows how to throw parties. He's a dancer. It doesn't matter the genre.
Hold up. Pause. How we missed this dancer bit? Somehow this.
I was going to raves, dude. I told you. Like I used to.
I guess that was an implied thing. And I just didn't even okay, you did very big fair.
Yeah, I was.
Were you an ill dancer?
I was all right. Some other people might be like he was ill. Like that was a long time ago. So like my shit ain't as dope as maybe it was when I was in my younger days. But like I did my thing when I was doing it. But I was more into like house dance and I did a little break, and I was never really a breaker though. But like house dancing and like that shit, I was definitely big on. But so there's me, Unpaid Bill, Mayday, Luck D, and then Topics, or Rocky, and we were the original core crew, and then our boy Hoodoo, and Stats, and Angel Dust. Angel D came later, but that was the fam. That was the crew. So we came to New York and we started, throwing shows and getting booked for shows, and we'd already been recording stuff. And again, like you got to understand the context, and I think this is why the stuff that we did at that time is still dope. You probably can't find a lot of it online. There's some of it online actually, because of Mayday, because he put some stuff up. But it was all love doing it, man. Like our sessions were.
Can you describe it a bit? Because this is a little bit more where the one thing I've learned doing this show is that as tech gets better, preparation gets worse, and therefore the meticulousness of music has changed. That is the one constant I can say maybe holds true if people want to talk about shit. Is people prepare less. So can you describe a bit the contest? Because you're still talking like early 2000s. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 07, 08 when shit gets cheap and motherfuckers get home studios for reals.
So basically, Bill, me, and Todd, we live in they call them shotgun apartments. It's like basically one long hallway with rooms. Like basically it's just like a series of rooms, and there's just a hallway that goes through the rooms. So that they have doors, but basically you can walk from the front of the apartment to the back of it through every room, and there's no other way to get to the room. So let's say if you're in the back of the apartment in the bedroom and you want to get to the kitchen, you got to walk through every other bedroom and the living room. There's like no other way to get. You have to walk through every room. So the nickname but they're old like apartments like that were in the turn of the century when people were coming over and emigrating, because like multiple families would live in one place, or like big families, and they would all be in this one apartment. Anyway, we turned that shit into a fucking like bunker dojo. Like we had 4 turntables set up, walls of records, and we're just always playing or making music. And in that time, we're all married now. A couple of us are fathers. We
Oh,
all have other careers. You know, Bill is a teacher, New York City school teacher. Mayday actually is a union organizer and a professor. Still make music. In fact, uh, and we'll probably get into this later, but like Mayday and I are doing a record this year called Emertica.
yeah, that's dope.
Um, we got stuff coming out, so we're always putting out music. But we just loved one. We loved each other's company. Like to this day, I mean, I could spend hours on end with these dudes, kicking it, just kicking it. So we were just growing up together, and and like I said, we had the same interests, but we also didn't have a lot of responsibility. So we just were just like, yeah, man, we're just fucking drinking beer, smoking weed, and playing records and going
Bro,
record
it's a
shopping and
dream.
digging.
That's a dream.
Yeah, yeah. So to your point about the 10,000 hours, without making it into like this mission, like, well, we've got to be. It was just organically happening because it was like, wake up, like, check the scene. I would wake up, right, and I'd walk into the studio, and Mayday and Bill would just be there, blunt, playing records.
My word, that's
Go
like
make some food, come back, still making shit or listening to records. Honestly, they spent more time just listening to shit, like hours and hours listening to records, and I would just pop in and out, take a break, go to the pub,
that's more
get
the
some
version I want.
yeah, go to the pub, get some Guinness, hang out, talk some shit, come back, put some more records on. Our weed dude was in our building, so he would just roll up with fucking
Bro.
whatever, and we would just chill.
Yo, but
And
you
then
guys are
all-
doing this after children, right? Because we just got a comment that was before children. You said you're doing all this after children?
No, before.
This is all before children.
Oh yeah, all before.
You're like, no, this is the
Might be the
before.
reason why there are kids now, but no, before kids. No, this is we're all we're all just and honestly, man, some of the best times of my life only because and shout out to my wife. I love my wife dearly and all of that. But there's just something about that. There's just something about that time when like all you're focusing on are your boys and the shit you love, and you're in a place that you dreamed that you wanted to live. Like that was the first for me. Moving to New York and moving in with them was the first time in my life that a dream I had I manifested. That was the first actual time that I was like, I envisioned this happening, and now it's happening. And that was so, I mean, it was scary sometimes, but it was so, it inspires me to this day. Like
Yo,
that
I
time
feel
of
that
my
shit,
life
though.
to this day.
Yo.
Like everything that I am is because of those dudes and that time, because
You
it
just
was
dropped
almost
like a huge knowledge nugget up in that. The idea of success is often correlated, if you read all the success books, to the simple concept of visualization followed by execution followed by analyze results followed by repeat. And that's all it is you do that a lot. So when you get that first taste of the full cycle completion, you visualize something crazy for yourself, something big, and you actually land it, oh my gosh, that unlocks the whole world for you, because now you've done that. What's the next one? It's just bigger. It's just more things to figure out. But you just repeat that process. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's such a key and pivotal thing.
yeah. And that's the thing. Bill's blowing up. I love Bill's forever in my head, man. Like, the funny thing is like, Bill's saying all this stuff in the chat. It's like, but he don't realize like I wouldn't be the MC or the artist if it wasn't for him. If it wasn't for the music that he exposed me to. So much that I understand, and I'm not talking to just rap records, and I'm talking about jazz and funk. Like a big part of my music education is really from hanging out with him and Todd. They are musicologists and meticulous with their shit.
Shout out you for
And
giving them flowers.
Nah, man, and see, he's calling me humble in the chat. It's like this motherfucker's humble, man. Like
Nah, I'm pretty
the
sure he's
knowledge
right.
this man has of music and history and culture, it's ridiculous.
So just
And
let's just
and
go
it,
on a logic run. So if he's that meticulous with it, therefore he's decided that you're that good. Thus, I should take his word that seriously based on your cosign.
well, it's what it is. but this is the thing, man. Like if you were to have him and I in a studio together right now, like if he was on this call right now, or if you were a fly on the wall, like we just, man, so many jokes, so many inside things. We had our own language then, man, and all of this is going into what our sound was and who we were, and it wasn't because we were trying to be something that people would listen to. We were just like, this is who the fuck we are, and we really like this music and these sounds, so we're gonna do it. So like that was the process. Like so much of our music was us
to
just
add context in New York City.
in
like
New York
this
City.
era of DMX.
Yes, in the era. Yes, in
So
the
at
era of
this point,
DMX.
I'm like 12, 13 years old, and my dad, for some reason, has rap CDs because he's trying to be cool. And I discover Volume 3, and then there was X, and that album is like probably my first full rap album that I've listened to.
And and I'm not gonna lie, this might be sacrilege, because rest in peace to the legend, and he is truly that. At that time, we weren't fucking with DMX.
Yeah.
We weren't. That was some club shit. That was some
Oh, it's so
like
good, though.
thugs. We were, yeah, for sure.
I was 12,
but like
man.
we, yeah, but we weren't on that vibe. We were on a completely different vibe.
So
we
what
were
kind
on
of
a
vibe
completely
were you
different
on?
mission.
So what's the vibe
Man,
you were on back then?
The vibe that we were on back then, man, was like Anti-Pop Consortium. It was The Far Eye. It was Log Cabin Crew from the West Coast. It was Black Star. It was Raucous Records. It was Mos Def. It was Nas. It was basically what came from that golden era of the mid to early 90s, and then like its children. So all of this shit that was on Raucous,
DMX
High Tech.
was basically like
Yeah.
the Drake.
No, because Drake is kind of mushy.
Okay, but
It
like,
was more just
his
popular.
His role is the club music in society.
Yeah,
the girls,
yeah.
The girls love
Yeah.
DMX, dude. Say what you will, throw that shit on at a wedding. Watch how girls get up and turn out.
Oh, Dilated Peoples, Willie got it. Yep, Dilated Peoples was
Yo,
heavy.
DITC's fucking amazing music, though. Shut
Oh
up.
yeah, all of that shit. Yep. I was listening to Ideas, Slum, Atmosphere.
That's
like not
fresh.
super heavy on them, but like that was in the mix for me.
So
but-
we're like
but-
the anti-pop.
Yeah, Anti-Pop, still to this day, Anti-Pop is like, and that's the thing, hard, raw, or really just abstract and different. I mean, the only way I can really describe it is like whatever sounded different, we were on. And so much of at that point, rap had really just become the cool thing, the popular thing, and that's cool. And I don't want to like quote unquote hate on that, but it made the sound not feel as real to us. So it was sort of like, okay, yeah, whatever. Y'all do that over here. Y'all do that over there. We're on this shit, and like,
I fucking
you know,
swear that's in one of your songs. Almost exactly verbatim.
yeah, probably. I mean, like, yeah, probably. I mean, I can only, nothing has changed from the time that I wrote my first rap song when I was like 13 or 12 to now. Whatever is happening with me, whatever I see or feel or I have questions about, that's what the music is about. So sometimes it's super political, sometimes it's super introspective. It's whatever. But like a lot of the stuff that I was doing with Bill and Todd was super political, very like existential type of shit, very just like just different. Just
honest,
and again, it was whatever was happening at the time. So there wasn't even like a formula like, okay, well today we got, it was just like whatever the fuck whatever crazy ass joke or name that Bill and Todd had made up for us at that point. Like we have a million fucking. I'm not gonna get into all of our crew nicknames, but we would just like make up names for ourselves or other shit, and like somehow that joke would turn into a topic, and then they would be looking for records and come up with a sound, and all of a sudden like I'm putting work, and they also rapped too, so like they were writing songs, they were writing raps as well, but like it was. I have to say it. We were very much like a Dayline that way. Like we just had weird ideas and just completely unorthodox ways of looking at shit, and we just put it on a record. Yeah, for sure. Beats first. Beats are always first. I have to, Bill. I have to teach my kids that because like that's a weird thing about this generation. I can't front. Like
Can you clarify
they so many of them write before they make the. They write the song before they hear the beat.
Bro, that's so weird to me. That's weird to me too. I don't understand how you do that.
Well,
I can understand how you have like a bar or a concept that you think of and you hold on to, or like maybe a hook line. Okay, fine. I can see how you come up with a hook line and then you hear a beat, and that beat and that hook just makes sense. And then, bro, it's to the point where I can't even write bars until I mapped out the structure on that beat.
Listen, the way that I'm used to doing it, honestly, going back to the process you're talking about. I used to sit in the room with Bill and Todd. I don't make beats. I've tried to make beats. I dabble with shit for a half minute. I just never was able to get into it. And I will. It's not, I swear before I die I will. But I needed to feel where they were going with the music, with the song. So I would sit and listen and watch them build the thing.
Wow.
And you know, sometimes I wouldn't stay for the entire thing. Sometimes I'd go out and do something else, or like sometimes they'd already put a lot of it together. But I was always trying to hear what they were hearing, and that would tell me what I was gonna write. So I never really came in and it's like, yo, I wrote this. Make a beat to this. It was always like, oh shit, that sounds ill. What are y'all doing with that? Oh shit, you're going there with it? Wait a minute, hold on. Let me get my notebook. And then I would just be sitting there. There's so many hours.
Where like it was band. That sounds like band shit.
It totally was band shit. I mean, it was totally band shit. It was absolutely band shit. And Todd and Bill were like they were the maestros. They spent the most time looking for digging, period. Like they were the ones that were actually digging. If I was digging, it was because I was with them. You know, I started digging a little bit, but like that was their religion. They did that more than they ate.
That's so interesting.
The two things those two dudes back then, the only things they cared about was fucking Guinness and digging for records. That's like and some weed. Like that's what they were. That's what they were about. Like that's what they were about. So like, just always dope music in the house, and that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't as if like everything was a beat. They would just sometimes they just be playing records. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't always about getting the record so a beat could get made. It was just like they were just like listening.
Super fans of music, and by virtue of that, you were forced to listen to a bunch of good music, which evolved your taste and horizons, etc. So what you're saying is the truth is to be a good artist is find a DJ unpaid bill. Find a guy like him in your life. That's what I'm hearing. The good advice is.
That's the best way to do it. If you're gonna be an MC, go get a DJ and get one that's dope, and go get a dope DJ. But you know what it is? The jokes aside about it is like you have to, you know, it goes back to what we've been saying, man. You have to love it. You have to have an appreciation for it.
All right. So what happens after those 2 years of realizing you're maybe not as dope as you thought you were when you got to New York?
I got dope. I got dope. I got a little doper. So like Freestyle Monday, Freestyle Mondays is sort of like my. So you know Project Blowed, right? You know The Good Life and all of that, right? Oh, you don't? Oh shit, son. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is what I'm gonna ask you to do. This is your homework for later. Go on
Give me
Netflix.
homework.
I'm giving you homework, bro. Go on Netflix, and there is a documentary by Ava DuVernay called The Good Life. Go watch that, and you'll learn about a crew called Project Blowed. And you ever hear of a group called Freestyle Fellowship?
Yes.
So Freestyle Fellowship, their home base was the Good Life Cafe,
Okay.
and it was an open mic that birthed like mega giants in the West Coast hip hop scene of the early '90s and mid '90s.
Okay.
And essentially, you've heard of Lyricist Lounge,
Yes.
right?
Thank goodness I'm on this show and I've been educated.
Yes, yes. So Lyricist Lounge is a more known, popular, similar type of thing. You got Mos Def from there.
Yeah.
You got, Black Star and people like that from there. But I'd say almost every city and scene has something like that. Like in Philly, it was the Black Lily with the Roots. Like there's always a spot where like a community of heads kind of form. So for me, in New York, after Lyricist Lounge, because by then Lyricist Lounge had sort of been kind of like dying out, two things kind of rose up. End of the Week, which is still running.
Yo, shout out
And
End of the Week who fucked my whole
shout
life
EL
up.
Dub. That's the homies as well.
Fucked
And then
my
there's
whole life
Freestyle
up.
Mondays. Yeah. And those are the two spaces. But the space I found first and the space that I ended up staying in was Freestyle Mondays. And Ill Spoken, Mariella, Claudio, Chris Kuzmi, and Dave. That was the crew that started that. And they were a band called the XO. And shout out to Cecil Rock, who was the other MC with Ill. And they were a group, but they ran a weekly open mic where MCs would freestyle. And that was the kind of the rules, like no rules, no writtens. So you would play with the band and you'd be in a line. And this is what I'm talking about, why I realized like I'm not as ill as I thought and it's a different level. Imagine a bar with a stage. On the stage, got a guitarist, bassist who sometimes plays like a sax or brass, a drummer, an ill jazz type singer, and the most ridiculous 2MC you've ever heard. And they have this great interplay and they're freestyling. And then at some point, they'd open up the mic. And then the band would just jam. And Ill and Mariella would come up with hooks. And when they were done with the 8 bars, let's say it's you and me in line, you would go up and you'd spit 16. And you'd have to know what 16s were, because at 16 bars, they'd bring the hook in and then you'd step off stage. And by the time the next 8 bars was done, the next MC would step on stage and they'd have to spit a 16. And that would be all freestyle. And they would do that for about 5 hours every Monday, from like 10 p.m.
there is shit like
till
that
about
in
3 in the
Montreal.
morning.
Straight up, there is. I never went to it because it's from 10 till 3 in the morning, and I have
Right.
work from 9 to 5, and I'm like, yo, it's just not going on for me like that. But shout out Le Cypher of Montreal and Community, who both rep that kind of shit.
No doubt. And so Dave and Kuzmi, Ill, Mariella, Claudio, the XO, and Cecil, they basically created and birthed this like room where like all of these MCs, and EO Dub was doing something similar. They weren't using a live band. They had a more traditional like DJ setup in the Three Kings. Shout out to the Three Kings. They were doing a similar type of thing where you had a list and you had MCs rocking. Some would freestyle, some would actually do like actual songs that they've written, which is more closer to like what The Good Life was. But the thing about Freestyle Mondays was it was like you had to freestyle. That was the whole vibe of it. It was a freestyle jam for like 5 hours. So I stepped into that and I met and heard just ridiculous, and you didn't have a break. Like the only break was if you didn't get on the line. but then you weren't going to rap. So the only time you could rap was to be online, and wherever you were in the line, you had to wait to go. So sometimes the line would make up a story, and you'd have to keep the story going in your freestyle. Or like the hook would have a topic, and then as long as you're in the line, you gotta actually be able to keep the topic going. And these are all like freestyle games and shit, basically, you know. But there's a live audience watching this. So imagine you're not a musician, you're not a rapper, you're not a singer. You just came to hear this ridiculously dope band, and there's just a room of like 20 MCs that just keep performing 16, 20, 24 bars at a time in rotation with these 3 hosts that know how to like make a song out of all of this freestyle by bringing in hooks and bridges and having the band switch up. So there's this whole vibe going on. And that's where I really first got like my performance chops, because that was the first time, before I ever got booked for a show, before I ever was like on a marquee with my group or as a solo artist, I was performing in front of a crowd, one verse at a time for like hours. But like, you want to get remembered. Like the greatest thing was when they would go to break and you'd go outside, cats need to smoke or get some air because it was small, and yo man, that thing you said, you know, when that last line was ill, or like, yo man, I've been seeing you come every week, you're my favorite. Like you were doing shit for props, and you wanted to be remembered. You wanted people to like not forget who you were. And but it was sort of like, it wasn't on some like full on ego shit. It was just more like iron sharpen iron, and these are the motherfuckers that are like doing this shit for real, and I want to be associated with them. I want to be in that call. So me coming from a small ass town, and I learned later that, you know, half those cats weren't from New York either, and were just like me, came from other places, trying to make their name, trying to follow their dreams, do whatever.
So you're describing the grind for the people that were not from New York, that were in New York, whereas like End of the Week was very, because I ended up linking up with End of the Week. Like we ended up doing this weekly shit on their Zoom. To be honest, it's basically this, and now it has a different name, and it's on Wednesdays. So fucking shout out End of the Week on the reels, because like I got to run through their whole roster. Big Zoo, Nunzio, even Prolific One. Got to hear the story of it all. Yo, it's so New York centric.
Yes.
Like, in a way where what you're describing feels, no disrespect to them, I'll fucking love End of the Week. They're the homeboys. I have their fucking logo on a bunch of my faces and shit, so we all cool. But I realized it's so New York centric. I tried to open mic with them. I don't know that I do the New York thing enough for it. And when you're describing over here, though, it sounds way more my type of, I would fuck with that.
The vibe, the funny thing is the vibe were different, but they were the same in a lot of respects. And most of it really was, for me at least, was the live band aspect as opposed to the DJ. Because I had been performing, to be honest with you, I had been performing more with live musicians more than I had performed with DJs, because where I was from, we didn't have clubs. So DJing wasn't, cats didn't like go to high school and want to be DJs. They wanted to be rock stars. So I knew more cats growing up that were guitarists and drummers and shit like that. They weren't really into hip hop though. So like I was something different. So I hooked up with cats that wanted to be different. So by the time I came to New York, I'd gone to EOW. I'd done stuff at EOW. Like I said, like they're the homies as well. Like shout outs to Baxter and Zoo and all those cats, like mad love and super dope.
Amazing people.
Yeah. But when I came to New York, where I early on, where I felt the most comfortable was in the band and the jam session, and also, to be really honest with you, like I said, EOW was super established. They were very, not only just New York centric, but they were very much plugged in to what like the heads that were like big at the time in the indie scene. They were all from the class of EOW. They had all cut their teeth there. So like they had like mad songs. Like they could all freestyle. Like Zoo is one of the illest freestylers you'll ever hear on the planet. So was
Nice.
Prolific. Like just the illest, right? But they also had mad songs. And that's what they were also about. And I honestly, at that point, even though I'd been, like I said, I'd been writing every day, I didn't have like polished songs to that degree. I had songs, but like these cats had like volumes. So I wasn't, and I, like I said, I had just gotten here, so I wasn't really polished enough to say like, all right, I'm gonna go to EOW and I got like 15 songs of my own, like down perfect. Like I wasn't at that space when I first came in. I was like, yeah, I've done a few songs. I got a couple of cool raps that I've got. I can freestyle. So I kind of came to New York learning how to write songs, but kind of had cut my teeth more as like a performer and a freestyler. Even though I did both, I was actually in a live setting. I felt more comfortable doing freestyle.
You know what's crazy though? If I think about it, you're probably getting paid better today doing what you do than you are going down the songwriting thing just on the fucking performance angle. If you can be like that entertaining, you can get like a lot of money.
Well, the funny thing is that so much of what I do now is born of my ability to freestyle. But like, you know, like I said, like I'm also an educator, and I spend a lot of my time actually like curating and running programs for young people. But a lot of the things that I do as a performer kind of like translate into working with them. And yeah, a lot of the, like in COVID, like I did a lot of performances for like schools and like younger folks. And I actually like teach workshops about like the science of how to freestyle and like what it, you know, like, because you can't really, the funny thing is like I teach rapping, but the first thing I do when I talk about it, especially when I'm dealing specifically with like older heads, like high school kids, I tell them like you can't really be taught how to freestyle. It's something you have to just do. But I have some methods and ways to get you to open yourself up enough to develop the ability to do it.
Yo, I got big questions. And I say this because as you're describing all this, we started a cipher every Tuesday night that's all off the domes. So we'd be off the dome rapping for like 3 hours or so, and just all learning about it. So what would your tips be for the people who are like maybe a little bit nervous about approaching a situation like that? What are some things they can do at home to like up their freestyle game?
I mean, the biggest thing I would say to start is you have to get over yourself.
Woo.
And what I mean by that is people often block themselves because they want to be Kendrick before they can even rhyme cat with hat. So they hear themselves mess up, or they stutter to get a bar, and then they quit. I sound horrible, I sound whack. You have to realize like you're building a muscle. You know what I mean? Like you're working a muscle. We all have tens of thousands of words. If you speak, if you have language, unbeknownst to you, you have tens of thousands of words that you know, that you just know. You know them so well, you don't even realize how many you know until someone shows you that you know them. Right? Then it's about, okay, how old are you, Holden?
33.
You're 33. So you have, let's cut 10 years off of that. Let's say we'll start at 10. We'll just to be cute, but I could say even before 10. You have 23 years of experience on this planet. You've gone through numerous things. I don't even know what you've gone through, but you've gone through something.
Numerous
and
things.
I don't even, it doesn't have to even be dramatic. You've had friends, you've had girlfriends, you've had family members, you've gone on vacation, you've gone through schools, you've been in car. You've been a human being, so you've had experiences, 23 years worth. So you have this voluminous vocabulary. You have all of these things that you've seen and done, watched, listened to, all of that. Freestyling is about getting to a place in your mind where you feel comfortable enough to access those things instantaneously. and also getting cues from around you. Like, it's to the point now, like this wasn't the case when I first started, but it's to the point now where you could drop a beat right now, you could give me a word, and I can turn that into a freestyle. I can turn that into a song. I can make that something that is coherent and that, you know, you could vibe on and pick that up. So the first thing is to get over yourself and to have fun and realize that just like riding a bike, you're going to fall, you're going to trip, but you get on the bike. And then it's really about connecting with the things that you like know the most. Like, I don't know what hobbies you have, but like I said, I'm into sports. So I know a shit ton about sports. We all have like useless information that we just love. You know, some people are into anime. Some people love sitcoms. Some people are cooks and chefs and love food. Other people are into we all have like a massive amount of information about shit that's not really important to anyone but us or only a few people, but we know a lot about it. So it's like starting there. Rap about things that you have a lot of information about and just get used to kind of like accessing that and getting comfortable with the words that you know. And I have like exercises that I do with people to sort of like unlock that with them. But yeah, the biggest thing about learning how to freestyle and getting good at it is you kind of just have to go through and get the out the fear of not being that good at it when you're with people. And that's like the hardest thing. That's why, like, when I first started freestyling, I was only doing it with my crew. Cause if they not made fun of me, but like if they laughed about it, I didn't take it personal. And I felt comfortable because like, these are my bros. They're not, you know what, it's not whatever. It's not I'm not in a competition. I'm not battling anybody. It's not money on the line. We half drunk anyway. But after a while, you do it more. You do it. Anything that we already talked about 10,000 hours. Anything that you do repeatedly, eventually, even if you're not like innately good at it or naturally gifted at it, you're gonna get better. So the trick about it is like, how do you get so passionate or in love with it, or it's such a focus for you that you can get through the points where like you just said some gibberish, or you keep repeating the same line, or it doesn't sound as like hot as Logic when he freestyles, or Royce. You know what I'm saying? Like getting out of your own way. I've seen some stuff where I think he can do it. Like I think he can do it, but you know what I'm saying? Like you have to get out of your own way.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's really hard to do. Especially, it's really hard to do if there's a lot of other shit that's going on in your head, or your purpose of like coming to that freestyle that you're talking about on Tuesday night is because you want to be the fucking.
Believe it or not, everyone who's coming through just wants to have fun. That's why it's really dope. But I've talked to people like, you know what inspired me? It wasn't like, it's my cousin's cousin. The dude hits me up. He's like, bro, I've been watching you guys rap, and it's making me feel like, because, we are so fucking regular. That's like the whole goal. Whatever, Twitch picks topics, boom. It's not really about fame, trust. That's not what the vibe is. It's more like,
oh, for sure,
we all just want to practice together, because that's what everybody said was the thing to do. Honestly, you talk to everybody from that era, they're like, bro, you gotta practice with your peoples, get your swords up, look at the Wu-Tang. So like, we're trying to actually bring that into a Zoom call on the internet. Okay, the broadcasting is the capitalist in me. It is what it is. But when it came down to it, he was like, I want to like come rap, can you teach me how to like freestyle? And I'm like, huh, bro, that's like there's a thing, there's like a demand for like people who just want to be able to go bust a few rhymes on a Zoom call and not feel goofy.
To be honest with you, because freestyling is magic. Because the thing that people have told me when they've seen me freestyle or been in places like Freestyle Mondays and I've talked to them and they're watching other people who do it really well. It's a weird concept for people, and it's hard for them to imagine themselves being able to think that quickly. Like it's almost like they like, how do you do that? And like I said, like at least the way I understand it, it's not really that tricky because I've gotten to the point where I know, like, I'm not saying anything that I don't know, and I'm pretty comfortable with my vocabulary, and I'm always learning words. So it's just about getting into the and with that said, it's a freestyle. So like I'm not 100% all of the time. There's sometimes where like it's mad regular because I might not be in the right mentality. I might be upset about something, or like I might be nervous. But 9 times out of 10, I can make a song the minute the beat starts, and I can go wherever I need to. Yeah, and I can go wherever I need to go, just based on, what I'm accessing, and like pulling from, what's around me, and then taking the things that I know and pulling those things in. And it's kind of like when you're a ball player, you've heard of things like when you're in the zone. Like when you get to that, all of the zone is, whether it's sports or freestyling, it's just a level of comfort where you just know exactly what's going to happen next. You're just so comfortable, like, yes, it's going to go left and to right, and I'm going to catch it here. And you're not thinking about it. You're not like, well, maybe it's going to go to the left. You know it's going to go to you because you've done it 1,000 times. And you know this motion, and it feels the same, and you're so focused, it feels the same. So it's the same thing when I'm freestyling. It's like, okay, if I get in a space and I'm just geeking out, I don't even think about what I'm about to say next. It just happens. And I already have all of this information inside of me, and I know it. And when you're in that zone, you're not even conscious of that. You're just like, yeah, I'm rapping it. Yo, I very rarely do I get to record like the best freestyles, because usually the freestyles that I love the most are because I'm not thinking about it.
That's why you gotta do this shit on a Zoom call broadcasted live to a Twitch, so that all the moments are recorded. It's awkward, but you get past it.
Well, it's funny. Like some of the best stuff that I have recorded, it's not within the first 10 minutes of me freestyling. It's usually after like the first 2 hours. But there will be like a stream of like 30 minutes. Oh, that's the illest. So like I have a freestyle that I recorded. I was doing a workshop for some like elementary school kids, and it was a rhyme writing workshop, and I do freestyle in that rhyme writing workshop. But like, to show kids that what I'm gonna show them is real, I demonstrate. So I let them pick the topic. So we were talking about soccer because the little kids like soccer, and they found out, of course, that I'm into soccer, football. So this kid was like, I want you to rap about my favorite team, Liverpool. And I'm like, okay. It's like, at the end of the workshop, I'll do that. I promise I'll give you a minute about Liverpool, but we have to get to the whole thing. We don't have a lot of time, but I promise you I will make sure there's enough time at the end, and I'll rap about Liverpool. We get to the end, and I'm not gonna lie, I looked at it back. I impressed myself. I'm like, oh shit, I kind of killed it. I should send it to the Premier League. I could get maybe they'll fucking record it for Liverpool. Like, and it was only because I had so much fun with these kids, and I already love football, and I'm a Chelsea supporter. Like, that's my team. Shout out to the Blues. Yeah, I'm a Chelsea fan. Don't hate. Champions League.
I have like zero feelings towards it, but even I understood what that means. That it just means something, because I have friends who are those people.
So I know about Liverpool because they're kind of rivals of ours. So it's sort of like, it was like the perfect storm of, this workshop was really fun. These kids were really dope. I'm having a great time. They're really digging what they're doing. They made some amazing raps. And we're talking like 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and they're killing it. It's so cool. and I was in such a space, and I put the beat on, and I'm like, this little kid wants to hear about soccer, and I love soccer, and we love the same shit, and we just spent an hour together making something, and they had fun, and it was fun. I all of that went into me. I realized went into me kicking this ill freestyle because I'm just in the. It's the vibe. It's, you know what I mean. It's like it's set and setting. You know what I mean? It's all of that. So like,
So, no,
yeah,
I
you
mean,
just
it makes a lot
got
of
you got to
sense.
get in your
I
zone.
love your answer.
You know?
We're gonna make that a clip and make sure that that goes up because it's fucking brilliant. But I really like what Ismail's next question is, which I think is a cool follow up to that. Like, what did you learn from the kids?
Oh man,
Because you've learned
I
this.
think
How long have you worked with kids?
15 years.
Wow. When did you? How did you
Yeah.
get into it?
So when I moved to New York, like I was saying, so now we're talking about mid 2000s. I'd been doing odd jobs, and I think at one point, or I know at one point, I was working in customer service. All of that shit was like placeholders until I blew up in music, or like made music my career. Because you know, you said something earlier about like, you know, being a point where like the music's going to get to a stage where, you know, you may not make like super money, but you can make a living off of it. I was in that mentality. Like, I don't need to be wealthy. I don't have to have like platinum. I just want, if I can make an average Joe's middle class salary rapping,
Bro,
I'm great.
that's the dream.
If I can make 60 grand a year just rapping,
Holy
sign
shit.
me the fuck up. I'm super good. And some people will hear that, but like, that's mad mediocre, and like that's you're fucking lowballing yourself, and you're not shooting high
that's
enough.
what you get paid. That's after expenses, right?
Right.
So,
Yes.
yo, if I could, because right now, like, people make money, and that money goes into art, so you're already running on a deficit. So the idea of having that much money, and it pays for itself.
Yeah,
oh
no, that's
my
that would
fucking
be.
God. I'd be
I-
rich. I'd be rich in my mind.
Yeah.
Wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. Like living wage, right? Like, and that's, and honestly, that's to this day, that's what my wife and I are striving for, right? But then I wasn't even close. Like now, I got into the point where like the music pays for itself. Thank God. It doesn't pay for me, but it pays for itself. I've gotten savvy enough with my business and working shit out where it pays for itself for the most part. So then my other work allows me to live.
Yo, but that must be
But-
such a relief. That's still huge.
Yeah, it's freeing because, and this is going back to your boy KRS. KRS, he did a lecture years ago, and it hit me forever. He's like, don't have the music be how you make your living, because then you're putting all of this pressure on your art to feed you, and then it becomes about something else, because you're not going to write about what's important to you or what matters or what you know, because if that doesn't allow you to eat, then you've got to go write about something else. It's like, so don't make the music be the way you make your living. Figure out ways. You can have the culture inform how you make a living. You can use some of the things from your art to make a living, but don't have your art be the way you make a living, because now your art is a slave to making you eat. And that hit me hard.
Yeah,
That hit me really hard. So I was tired of doing 9 to 5s. I was never going to do that. I wasn't trying to get a career in anything. My father was a teacher. So I said, let me go into education. And the long story short of it was, I just couldn't get into a traditional school setting. I tried. I knew my mentality wasn't what it needed to be anyway, because I'm really not great at following orders like that. So, and this might be my ego, but like I'm definitely like an Aries from. So I'm like, I know what the fuck. I know the right way to do this. Don't tell. Like, just leave me the fuck alone.
I'm with you.
Come back in 10 minutes. You'll see that this fucking works. Don't tell me how to do the thing. I know how to do the thing. Just go away, come back, and you'll see, and I'll show you, and you'll be wrong. And a lot of times they're wrong. But you can't do that when you work in a public school because you have superintendents, you have principals, so they tell you what your curriculum is, yada, yada, yada. I was like, no. And I also was like I'm still this way. I'm like, yo, you fucking up these kids with the bullshit you're showing them. So, like, I don't want to have to be privy to that. I want to show them the truth. There's this thing called teaching artists.
That's big.
Yeah, so there's this thing called teaching artists. So, like, they took art and music out of schools, and now there's a whole industry that brings art and music back into schools, and they bring artists in to teach it. And it's evolved over time where now they're like, well, we can use art to teach people math and science and history and computers.
That's the dream.
Right. So that's what I got into in 2006. I started to become a teaching artist, and then that turned into what now is like hip hop education. So now I do research, I teach, I lecture, I curate programs, but I don't. And I make music. I mean, you've heard the records that I like. The record that you were talking about was in the one that was earlier. That's from 2019. That's like I'm still very much making records, performing, touring.
Allow me to say very good records with international audiences. Man says German.
Yeah, I got cats. I have records. Cats speaking in Portuguese.
How does somebody get involved in this shit? I'm not gonna lie. There's not many people who pitch some shit where I'm like, bro, that sounds lit. I want to do that.
So you know, it's funny, man. People ask me that all the time, and I feel like I let them down with my answer. And this is kind of true of my entire career in life. And it's ironically enough, it's the name of the group I have with my wife. Like, I just go where the love is, man. Like, my whole career has just been about I'm gonna be me.
Okay,
I'm just gonna show up and be me
in a different way. What are the logistical barriers one must overcome in order to actually participate in an organization like this in a serious capacity and gain employment?
Facts. One, you have to identify said industry. But we're kind of talking about two different things, because the stuff that I was doing with those artists where you're geeking about them speaking German and other languages is separate.
I'm talking about your education.
Oh, the education stuff.
Shit,
yeah.
That shit, I was like, bro, how do I do that? Like, as a human.
All right, so I'll tell you the story, and the gist of the story is you have to identify the companies and the institutions or the organizations that are doing that type of work, and finding out, where does your artistry connect and fit. So, like, I was looking for something alternative to public school education. Some friends of mine who were basically the crew that I was in, both were public school teachers, and then they transitioned. So they hipped me to it, and I met a woman named Rose Nopfeld, a.k.a. Rosa Bettina, in 2004-ish. She started a small non-for-profit called Urban Art Beat. And it was basically, she was a 6th grade English teacher in the Bronx, and she decided that she wanted to create an arts program in her school. So she started Urban Art Beat, and she was not an MC or an artist, but she used to go to Freestyle Mondays and was definitely like a fan of the culture. And she basically recruited a bunch of MCs and singers to come and do these after-school arts programs with her students. And when I met her, I kind of was like, yo, I'm trying to find something like this. And she's like, well, come through and be a part of this. And that's how it started for me. But it was really just me networking and being in a space with other like-minded people and artists and thinkers.
Swear, literally every time I ask a human being, how did you actually do this? Their answer honestly breaks down to the same thing. I left my bubble and proceeded to talk to new people and found the opportunity, because that's it. That's the answer. It's always like I feel like I don't know. I ask it every time because I'm fascinated logistically how people do it. And then at a logistical level, it's always some bullshit where it's either I went on social media / I went to real life. I went to a place where people were, and I found a person doing a thing. I talked to said person and proved my value, and thus I integrated into said system. And it's like that's the secret to a lot of things. It doesn't actually get more complicated than that, except that you have to go do it.
Yeah, and I think like what you said, like getting out of your bubble. Like for me, I never heard of teaching artist work until meeting my boy Far Beyond and Rabbi Darkside, Sam Sellers and Fabian Salcedo. They're both trained public school teachers and were doing that work. And then for the same reasons why I was trying to get out of my 9 to 5, they were looking for something that one more aligned with their ideals, more aligned with the life that they were looking to lead as artists. But they didn't want to do something that didn't feel meaningless. And they wanted to work. They have a passion like I do for young people. So, we live in a city like New York City, fortunately, that has an entire industry and community of this. And they tapped into it, and because I've been with them, I became aware of it, and because of the community of people I was around, I was able to sort of tap into that. And then once I got in, I just never left. Like, I literally quit my job after about 8 months of doing it for free, and then just slowly went back to like odd jobs until I got enough work as a teaching artist to basically just have that like basically pay my bills. But like it's funny now, but like back then it was scary as fuck, because I went from having a solid job but hating it, meaning like I could pay for myself, I could go out, and not extravagant or anything, but like I had enough money that I could pay my bills and had a little left over to do my thing. But I was miserable all the time. And then I go do this teaching artist work where I'm hanging out with these like kids in the Bronx, and I knew all of the cats that were in Urban Art Beat. They were the same MCs and DJs that were at Freestyle Mondays. We were all friends. And I felt like I had purpose. I'm working with these kids, we're building with them, we're giving them something that they love, we're helping them find their own like passion. But I'm broke as fuck. Like broke as fuck. And struggling to just make sure that I can keep my head above water.
I guess that's the other part of it, eh? There's going to be a sacrifice that comes with this kind of an occupation, because you're in education, which on top of it all is education.
There's a transition. Yeah, so 15 years ago, like I said, on the other side of it, I am going up, and I'm blessed and fortunate. I have opportunities happening all the time, and I've experienced some amazing shit. But then in 2006, from 2006 to 2008, I was scared shitless and was struggling. But that struggle felt so different than the struggle it was to get up and get on a train and trudge my ass to some office and sit in a cubicle to deal with shit that I could give a fuck less about, as opposed to getting on a train, pulling up the little change together to fucking go to the Bronx, travel over an hour to hang out with a bunch of 11-year-olds for 2 hours, and then travel the hour back to Brooklyn and do it all over again, and basically be volunteering. But that was amazing. It still is. And I was willing to like, eat a little less, not go out as much, until I figured out how I can make that how I made my way and my living. And also too, it allowed me to keep developing my craft as an MC, as an artist, because if I'm showing these young people how to do it, then I need to be extra proficient at it. I need to really know what the fuck I'm doing. So now I'm going even extra hard, working and practicing and developing techniques and trying to understand my techniques. So I feel like we've glossed over. So I want to go back to homie who had the question, Ishmael. What I've learned from those kids was really like, and it sounds like a broken record, but it's really the truth. Like, to be fearless, to be fearless, to be yourself. Because the one thing that I love about young people is like most of the time they smell bullshit from a mile away.
Woo.
And they don't have a lot of pretense to shit. However they feel is how they feel. And they're gonna let you know how they feel. They're gonna be upright about that. Even if they don't verbalize it, they'll tell you in how they connect or don't connect to you. They're not afraid to do that. But a lot of it is they're fearless. They're willing to do things and go places that they're not sure of. So I take that. I take that from the young people I work with all of the time. And also too, I learn from them to like keep shit light as much. I'm a serious guy. I'm very serious. You know, my wife might say I'm too serious.
Yo, shut up that gang of wives who think that shit.
But you know what? Working with young people and working with high school students allows me to stay just a little bit, you know, goofy sometimes, or just light, just keeping shit light sometimes, because that's, you know, I've made the best shit again when I'm just like, when I'm vibing, you know, when I'm not so like I gotta get it right, I gotta nail this fucking whatever, and it's just too, you know, Jay-Z said it in the Black Album, or in the documentary for the Black Albums, like, never think music. If you're thinking about the shit, it's already fucked up. You gotta feel that shit. You can't think a song into existence. You gotta feel it. The more you think about it, the farther away you're gonna get from the essence of what the thing is. So like, young people, they live in that space. They're just like and even if it's some hard shit or some dark shit or some sad shit, they're not trying to like come up with like the most perfect way to express their pain. They're just expressing it. They're not trying to come up with the most intricate thing to get the vibe. They're just vibing. And that's really half the battle. Like, you know, going back to what I was saying about freestyling, like, a lot of this shit, one of the first things I tell people, like, yo, you already know how to do it. I'm just showing you that you know how to do it. I'm not teaching you how to freestyle. You know how to do it already. You just don't realize you know. I'm just going to show you, you have all the ingredients already. There's nothing I'm going to give you or this to do. I'm just going to show you that you know how to do it already, and then you're just going to practice. You're just going to get comfortable with it. But you already know how to do it. The
practice thing is huge.
The practice thing is everything.
I don't know. I have like almost a daily regimen where I try to freestyle bullshit. It's not necessarily bullshit. It's just like, you know, I'll be walking around and now I just start saying whatever the fuck. I rap about the cats a lot. Bro, I rap about these cats way too much. But like, I thought about it. What if I made like a cat album where like I just create entire personas for these two cats and turn that into like 8 songs or some shit. The story of Gus and Ramona.
Interesting.
Yo, I don't know. These cats they have personalities, very distinct personality. Yo, it's been COVID, right? So the amount of time I spent with these cats changed drastically. And I could come up with some bullshit that was true to the essence of these cats. I know it sounds crazy, but if you met these cats after hearing the songs, I think I could do their personalities justice.
Listen, my door is closed, but like, I am a cat person. My wife and I have a cat, Solomon. Cats absolutely have fucking. I wish he could. I mean, he talks to us all the time, but like, I don't speak meow.
Yeah.
I wish I did, cause like,
all the time.
they definitely have personalities, and they definitely be thinking about shit. They have clear thoughts on a lot of stuff. Cause he be all up in our business all the time. And the looks he gives us are like, just like the head nod. It just, yeah, for sure. So you should make that shit. Make that shit. Make it.
I started this mixtape series. It's all off the dome. It's low effort. It was just shit to practice on. I might make some shit about cats. This just might be coming a little anthology part of a project.
Do
Nah, I
it.
love the idea. Why? Because these cats are fucking ridiculous. I'm not gonna say I'm their biggest fan because they don't like me, and I know they don't like me, but they understand the value in politicking me. When cats politic you, it is not the same shit. Okay, so you are an educator. You're somehow a hip hop artist with not somehow. You're a hip hop artist with odd magic. Artist. Let's just go artist. You do artistry shit. You're a dancer. You're an event coordinator. What else do you do that we may have missed in this conversation that's gone all over?
I mean, that's the gist. I mean, like everything kind of flows from me being an MC and a performer, but like, like I said, like I work with an organization called Ciphers for Justice as a researcher. I'm a published essayist. So, but all of it's basically born of like my experience in hip hop culture and the love that I have for it and like my study of it. So, and this is what I was saying earlier with the KRS-One, like that's what I took to heart. It's like, okay, so if I sell 10 rap records for the year, that's okay, because the shit I said on the records and the approach I took or the research that I did, I lectured at Indiana University 2 years ago about the effects that the golden era had on the emergence of me as an educator and as a social justice activist. And I explained in the paper how like the ideas and the themes that I was exposed to in the 90s really fueled my ethos. And I talked about how that ethos is not just in hip-hop music and culture, but in black culture as a whole, and how if you tap into that, it can lead you in these particular directions. And that paper got picked up by the Golden Era conference. The keynote speaker was Prince Paul, and I was the only one on the panel that wasn't a PhD and wasn't a musicologist.
Yes.
Everybody else was an established academic, and this is a lot of my life. I'm always in places that people don't expect me to be, and I've gotten in those places, I've walked through those doors, or I've sat at those tables because I'm me, and I'm an expert at it, and I have a really deep passion for something that I'm able to express and articulate in a lot of different ways. And apply it to a lot of different things. But that frees me to rap about whatever the fuck I want to rap about, because that's really what I'm trying to do. I just want to fucking rap and make the music that I want to make for the people I want to make, and even that she's allowed me to tour and do festivals in Europe and Africa and Asia and win awards and all of that shit. But I'm never going to be as popular as the Roots or be considered a legend like Tribe, but like everything that I do and like my life is built around like my
your
music.
Life is so much your life is just so interesting at the end of the day. Like, don't get me wrong, playing for like Jimmy Fallon for a decade is probably a really great gig. I'm not even gonna shit on that, but like at the same time, I would love to just do half the shit you're doing, just touring. I want to go to Africa. That sounds so fucking blessed. I want to go save kids. Not like save kids, but like go fucking be some influence, because I'm able to take this skill set and apply it in such a way where other people can avoid hurdles and shit that I hurdled through, like, and just like there's a lot more to life than say like materialism in it. A lot more like the current trend in corporate land is this idea of a servant leader, which is ironically the kind of life you basically live, which is fascinating to see how all the really, really rich people are trying to be more like you. So in a sense, you found some kind of wealth source inside of your soul that I find highly appealing.
Word. Yeah, it's weird how that works, right? Because we're being sold being an individual.
You know?
That's kind of what we. That's kind of what. There's a whole industry, multiple industries, centered around teaching you how to be you, and to be you, you just have to live. Like you just got to go out and like
that was
go through
something
it.
I wanted to touch on a little bit earlier. You said something super nifty to me. You got to New York and you grinded, and it was like all work. And then I thought to myself, part of the reason I'm able to be like more versatile with my shit is because I took the time to go to like a bird sanctuary, which got me thinking about these yellow chickadee bullshits. I think they're chickadees. I don't fucking little yellow birds, and ducks and turtles and shit. So you see different shit. You know, you see a hot girl or whatever. You just see things. And then it's like sometimes you gotta like stop and go like smell roses in your life in a way so that you can both digest the shit that you've been living, but also just go see some shit that's not what you've been seeing in like a quite literal way. Otherwise, how can you really approach art differently if your life is the same cycle without any break or deviation? There has to be like living added into that equation. Your life has to, like, I find, progress in order for you to stay relevant within yourself. You've managed to find ways to do that, but I feel like not a lot of people talk about that. And when they talk about living, it's partying. But I'm like, nah, I'm saying like fucking kayaking. If you ain't been kayaking, you don't know what the fuck kayaking is. How could you, like, you know, like, that's a bar, like kayaking on the fucking waters, free among the mountains, the blue skies, you know, like that bullshit. It's real, and motherfuckers know what kayaking's about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's real, and it is that simple. Like I have a line that I have in one of my songs, "Pretty," and like the end of the bar is like, the meaning of life is just to live, and like that's what I believe. Like, you just have to go out and experience things. And it doesn't mean it has to be grandiose. You don't have to go to like some mountain and climb it, or like, you know, walk through a fucking jungle. You just have to go out and have like authentic experiences and like really be in them and really connect with them and connect with people and really be honest in that connection. Whatever that is. It doesn't have to be grand. It could be simple. It could just be a talk. It could just literally be like a mentioning about like what you just saw walk past you with a person, or a moment that y'all caught something at the same time and a little joke happened out of it. Like being attuned to that as much as possible, and you'd be amazed at the things that you can sort of create from that. But like that all sounds like super like esoteric for people, or new agey, or like what the fuck. What most people think is like there's a book and a manual with a whole bunch of instructions, and I just follow that, and then I'll get the thing. It's like everybody thinks it's like Eat, Pray, Love or some shit. Like no.
Actually, Eat, Pray, Love is spitting what you're spitting, but people misunderstood it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, she wrote that book, right? And it's basically like, my life fell apart, and I just decided to just go somewhere, right? But it's like that was her experience.
Yeah, but it's her version, you know what I mean, of that shit.
Right. But her book wasn't meant to be like, go do what I just did to get what I got.
Like people really misunderstood the point. It's like to teach you to go follow your own version of that shit, and then the same thing happens over and over again with the fad books, so people kind of miss the point. But there's a reason they all say the same thing. Because it works for a lot of people. Like a lot of people. You go live some life, you get some experiences, you find a way to stand out, be interesting, mostly become comfortable with yourself, and then you can reflect yourself into the world via laws of attraction. You attract better people, blah blah blah, and it just kind of cycles up towards better things in your world. I mean, like that's all of these books, and your life is kind of a lot of that too. Just fucking cool to see. You're like a walking self-help book. No, but even like the way you spit the hip hops and stuff, a lot of it just resonate. Everything about what you've said has resonated with me. Either it's stuff I've lived, things I've said, things I like kind of believe in heavily. I think you're on a wavelength where it's like it's just when people start talking all that nonsense about how the world's on some dark tips and the world's getting worse and worse, I'm like, bro, you won't even understand how many amazing things I see happening. And like the fact that your job is to go be you on kids is a blessing for the whole universe. That means the world gets to be better if there are now opportunities for people like you to go be you again in the world of the little ones. That's amazing. Think about how, future generations and shit. It means they might outperform us, but that's a wonderful thought to me.
I mean, that means there's growth, right? That means there's
Facts.
evolution. Like if the current place that humanity is in is the pinnacle, like there's going to be nothing after that, it's already dead.
Yeah, it's pointless.
When you think about civilizations that reached their peak, and they reached a peak, and then they just stopped moving in whatever upward direction, they all fell apart.
And those old people that were expecting rewards got massacred by other people that were just on the rise and come up, which happened time and time again. That was a very bleak way to end that, actually. That was bleak as fuck. Honestly though, I appreciate you coming through. I'm not really sure where else to go with it, and I believe that when my brain runs out of ideas, that's usually a great time to like organically wrap it up. We're almost at 3 hours. This to me was a fucking great success of an episode. We definitely got to get a good sense of who you are. I found it personally inspiring. I just wanted to say that, like, how many people are out there like spitting the kind of like ideas that you are. Like, I try to take a lot of what you said into my, like, just on my own path and bring that into my own world, right? I'm gonna say it all different and do it all different, but the same core ideas are like, and to see how you've made that a career and shit makes me personally feel more inspired on a lot of the decisions I've made recently where maybe other people don't see it. But yeah, then again, it's not supposed to be cool, which means nobody's supposed to see it. It's supposed to be fucking weird. I mean, just that alone is very helpful, just for me as a human. So just wanted to thank you for that and whatnot, because I believe in letting people know when they do very impactful things, because sometimes people never say that shit, and they should. That's the whole giving flowers thing, right? Give people flowers and whatnot. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. But in general, this whole chat was like that for me. Like, a lot of good shit you said that was helpful for somebody like me. That's probably helpful for other people. I'm sure my girlfriend has been nervous about freestyling, is going to start practicing fucking more. I'm certain other people are going to, you know what, because you just have that kind of fucking energy, and the world needs that shit. I'm just you with a lot more fucks.
Well, I appreciate that, my man, and thank you so much for having me on, man. It's been super fun, dude. And it's very, very clear, man. Like, you have a really, really dope thing going on, and yeah, man, same thing, man. I love your energy, and I love your outlook on things, man. Because people try to make easy shit complicated, and sometimes this shit's not that fucking complicated.
Where it's also, you can do complicated shit, but then complicated people have to actually understand all the things that you did that were complicated in order to, like, I've written some shit that nobody's gonna get, and that really sat with me. Like, when you put all the time and effort into writing clever shit and not one person has noticed it, it's a fucking weird experience. But you can write some dumb shit like lose weight, and motherfuckers will connect with that. So, not dumb shit, you should care about health and stuff. But like, I started realizing that like there's levels to this if you really want to take your ideas and connect with people. Anyway, that could just go on forever and ever. I really appreciate you coming through. All of your links have been popping up or whatever, the Bandcamp, and I found your Facebook. All that's been popping up through. Well, everything's going to be linked below in the future, people watching it. So definitely going to have all your appropriate plugins is in order. Thank you all for watching. You had like a sufficient number of people who stuck it through the whole fucking time, which just makes this all feel a lot more fun and more of an experience to go through. So I definitely get more motivated when the chat's kind of litty. Not going to lie, it just helps a bit. But that's all you. You were dope. I do the same shit over and over. Trust me, I have to be with a guest that's fucking litty for it to be like people sticking around for hours. That's just the facts of the situation.
Well, yeah, man, thank you again, and yeah, hopefully, if cats are feeling what we were talking about and stuff, yeah, definitely check my music at freshfruitsmusic.com and the Bandcamp freshfruits.bandcamp.com and yeah, man, this is to be honest with you, I've done a lot of interviews and no bullshit. This is easily top 3 that I've done, man. Because I don't usually get this in depth about just like philosophy in life. This is very different, very different, very fun. It's really dope.
I think everybody is in the same place I'm in a sense. We all want to make our bless ass art, but none of us get the opportunity to ask people the kinds of questions I feel like I can just ask, because I don't give a shit. I'll be wrong. Fucking tell me I'm wrong. It's easy peasy lemon squeezy. But like, the fact is, who doesn't need to know about all of this shit? Like, maybe somebody sees this shit and becomes a hip-hop educator type things. People don't even know options exist until they, all that. Anyway, I can go on for days about that shit. But it's just, I learn everyone, they're a gift. I get better at what I do because of what I do, which is fucking fascinating as hell to me. Anyway, special thanks also just to the patrons: Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Power, Jonathan Barnes, Adrian Blackwick, and then Linda Williams, and Scribble, Dope. Support what we do. Patreon.com/Behind That Suit if you want to support what we do, or if you're on the Twitch, Amazon Prime's free and shit for the subscribes. And since we got the raid request, we're gonna hit up the Native Hip Hop Festival. I hit that button, and we gotta do the weird countdown. But live long and prosper, everyone. Now we gotta wait like 2 seconds.